10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, wrestling fans, and welcome to the Wrestle Talk Podcast. For the next 2 hours, we will bring you the latest pro wrestling news, in-depth analysis of all your favorite promotions from across the globe, and much, much more. We will also bring you exclusive interviews with the greatest professional wrestling personalities on the local, national, and international levels. If you want to follow the Wrestle Talk Podcast, check us out online at www.wrestletalkpodcast.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And now, it's time for the reigning, defending, undisputed leader in pro wrestling podcast, the Wrestle Talk Podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 519 of Wrestle Talk Podcast, Uncharted Territory. It is I, the one, the only, and now I can say it, the Hall of Famer himself, Luke Roberts. It's still something I can't really wrap my brain around just yet. But tonight we're going to have a great show talking about Hall of Fame. We're going to be talking about the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame and the Hall of Fame induction ceremony, which is going to be taking place in just a few short days up at the Dan Gable Museum in Waterloo, Iowa. We're going to have Chad Olson joining us in the 8 o'clock hour. We're going to be asking a lot of great questions, a lot of great inductees, a lot of great things going on in the world of professional wrestling. And you know something right now, make sure to hashtag Let's Talk Wrestling, hashtag Wrestle Talk Podcast, hashtag WTP. And ladies and gentlemen, by my side, as always, not the maestro, Jeremy Carpenter. Jeremy Carp is home ill this evening. Get well soon, Jeremy. I'm going to be joined by the man that everybody here at the WTP at the Wrestle Talk Podcast knows all too well, the young lion with the old soul, the one, the only, Gabriel RC.
Luke Roberts. It's been too long, man. I wasn't on the last show, dude.
Hey, I understand, man. And a lot of things have changed over the last few days. I know that you've been traveling the country. I've been traveling the country, had an opportunity. I want to give a shout out to my good friend, Bulldog Bob Brown Jr. up in the great Portland, Oregon area. Want to give him a shout out. I had an opportunity to spend some time since the last episode up in the great Portland, Oregon area, up in the Pacific Northwest. Had a great time. Got to experience some great minor league baseball action, a lot of great scenery. And then I have to come back to the St. Louis heat and humidity. I wish I could have had about 5 more days where I could have brought that temperature back here. But how you been doing, RC? I haven't talked with you in a while. How you doing, my friend?
A lot has happened for Gabriel Larson in the past week and a half, Skywalker. So thanks to my job, I actually recently had an opportunity to go to Boston, Massachusetts on a training excursion for our new recruits for my job. So that was quite an experience. You know, meeting your boss face-to-face is very different than talking to him on the phone, but you know, went there with a clean shave and a firm handshake, did my best. And, you know, I'm all 3 of the guys that I was training are still running for it. They got my number. So if they ever need me, they call me. And, you know, I was working most of it. So a lot of it was inside of a BJ's. But the day that I got to go out and check out Boston, it was gorgeous.
Well, like I said, I got to ask you, with all the great stuff out there on the Atlantic coast, did you get any chance to try any of the food staples like the Boston crab cakes or anything along those lines while you were out there?
See, everybody in Boston's going to hate me because I knew I was supposed to, but when we were going out to eat, we went to this Thai restaurant. So I think
I understand completely, Arsene. I understand completely. Like I say, when I was out in the Portland area, I managed one meal because that's one of the big things is like salmon and fresh fish out in the Northwest. I managed to get one. It wasn't easy with my hectic schedule, and I know where you were coming from with yours. But like I said, it was one of those experiences. You got to put it in the bucket list of things you've had to do. But you know, I don't know if I would have gone that far with it's out there, but that's not here nor there. Now I got to ask you. We've talked about countless times on the show. We've talked about places like the Cauliflower Alley Club, like the Independent Wrestling Hall of Fame, which is in St. Louis. The division or the branch, the independent or the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, it's up in New York. But many people identify, if you're going to say Hall of Fame, you have to talk about the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame in Waterloo, Iowa. And I got to get your thoughts here. We're going to be joined by Chad Olson in a little more than an hour. My question to you, Arsene, is this. What are you looking forward most to this interview this evening?
I mean, honestly, just to get his thoughts on the actual Hall of Fame itself. I mean, it's, we always throw the word around for Hall of Fame, but what that truly means to people especially is something that I think, goes sort of under the radar because, it has the word Hall of Fame in it and everybody just sort of assumes that there's a sort of grandeur to it. But what that truly means to people, I think, is what I'm really hoping to get out of it. But that's just me.
Well, I mean, again, I know we had an opportunity before we went live this evening to talk about some of the special inductees that are going to be going in this year. And I mean, again, the names and I mean, when we get an opportunity to talk with Chad in hour number 2, there's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to have to talk about. And you're going to share if you've got ideas for maybe who belongs in the Hall of Fame, maybe who you would like to see, maybe questions for our guest here seating. As you see right here, the promotional poster, the 17th through the 19th of 25. As crazy as it sounds, it's only 9 days away. And not only do you have the opportunity to experience that, but also you're going to have an opportunity, a Night of Legends from SICW is going to be taking part up in the Great Waterloo, Iowa, as a part of the Hall of Fame weekend as well. And again, as you see right here, I mean, the names, the faces, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that you may not be familiar with. There's going to be a lot of people you may be familiar with. As you look right there, you got Big Nasty Glenn Williams on the poster. You've got Lilith Khan. And of course, where you always see Lilith Khan, it's not out of the realm that Attila Khan is going to be too far behind. And again, you got a lot of great professional wrestling, all brought to by the great folks over at SICW. Make it a point to check them out on social media. Check out Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame as well. But you know something, Arsene? We got to go here with 519 episodes. We got to make it a point to acknowledge our great sponsors because the sponsors have kept us going, have kept us traveling the world to keep bringing our wrestling viewers the best in professional wrestling, keep the family up to date. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and thank our great sponsors, from without who the Wrestle Talk Podcast does not exist. The great folks over at Retro Zone. You've got Painters Green Productions, the one, the only Big Daddy P, the independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. If you want to check out the next induction, it's going to be Sunday, July 19th. More information coming soon. Interstate 70 Sports Media, Little Popeye Designs, home of those great Wrestle Talk Podcast tumblers. Doomed Outfitters, the great folks over at WDWA, World Domination Wrestling Alliance, where you can catch Elevation every other Tuesday night. And, of course, the FWWC, the world's premier fantasy wrestling group. You know something, Arsene? That's one of the things we got to look at here when we're on the show. Not only do we have great fans, but we have great support from all these great sponsors. And if you ever want to become a sponsor of the Wrestle Talk Podcast, make it a point to shoot us a message out on social media. We're more than happy to have you join the Wrestle Talk Podcast family, just like the two of us have been a part of the family for a long, long time. Now, Arsene, I got to ask you, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit. Am I safe to say right now that wrestling is firing on all cylinders?
Honestly, yeah, I'd say it's a pretty safe bet because honestly, we've been picking up in the last couple of days, but I think especially it's been firing on all cylinders in areas we haven't been expecting. And I mean that because, WWE, if anything, I feel like is on the back foot right now, given some of their product. And I feel like places like AEW, your New Japans, your TNAs, hell, I'd argue even NXT is firing a little bit more than WWE on their regular television right now.
And right now we're going to be talking about a lot of things that I'm going to give the fans a little bit of a sneak peek. I know right now, and also Susie Haas, thank you for your sponsorship as well. Susie Haas, always making sure to take care of things each and every week. If you're a fan and want to support the podcast, let us know as well. But I'm going to tell you right now, tonight in the High Spot segment, I'm not going to let it all out of the bag, but we're going to be talking We're talking a little AEW. We're going to talk a little bit TNA. We're going to talk a little WWE. Might sprinkle in a little bit of New Japan, maybe a little bit of that MLW. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. But you know something, Arsene? I have had a request. And that request is from the one and only Nightmare Jones, Joe Lance. He wants you to officially have that opportunity, as you've gotten really good with as of late, to go ahead and take care of that little piece of business before we get everything going, to keep it official, as the Night Owl says. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to throw it over to you to take care of a little piece of business we do every episode here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast.
Is it the part that I've been dreading the most?
Maybe. I know you don't dread it as much as the Nightmare Jones doesn't dread it, but I know Jeremy Carp, he looks forward to it because of paying respect, but he doesn't listen to it for other reasons. So let's go ahead real quick. I'm going to pass it over to you, my friend.
All right. Well, as always, ladies and gentlemen, the Wrestle Talk Podcast would not be able to do what we do if it was not for the grass that we stand on. And that is because we live on the greatest country on God's green earth. And so we would like to ask everybody in attendance if we could please remove your caps, place your hands over your hearts, and pay tribute to the greatest country, the United States of America. You know, it's been so long since I've been on the show. I almost got nostalgic for that sound.
Well, you know something. You know something, though, Arsene. I mean, you may have a few comments or a few choice words. But the fact is, we are very proud to be living in this great country. We want to give a shout out to all the men and women who defend our country, to all of those great first responders. As a matter of fact, you look right here, the Independent Hall of Fame will be in the high spots, getting bigger and better ever. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be soon. It's going to be real soon, is my hope, that the Hall of Fame is going to be able to start announcing those 2026 inductees. They're hard at work as well, supporting the Wrestle Talk Podcast, but getting things ready. But as I said before, we want to give a shout out to all the first responders, all the great men and women who provide their lives each and every day to defend our country, to make sure that we get to do what we do each and every week. You know something, Arsene? It's 7:18. We've got all the pleasantries and all the official business taken care of. I think it's time to give a shout out to our good friend, the one, the only DJ Money, who brings us the high spot each and every episode. Take it away, DJ Money.
Mic check, mic check. Yeah. All right. Wrestle Talk Podcast. DJ Money. Yeah. Let's go. Welcome to High Spots, where we pop news like flare chops. We talk shop, coming through the screens of a laptop. And non-stop like a runner speakers of blacktop. We hit hard like chair shots and backdrops. Like a spark flash, look like a belly flop. Now that's hard. We up to speed while they stay slow. Wrestle Talk Podcast, now they know. We about to start the show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here at the High Spot segment. I want to give a shout out to DJ Money and all those great people over at Bryant Hill. Making a point, check them out on social media. They are actually in the midst of some pretty big changes over there at Bryant Hill and our good friend DJ Money. Make it a point to check them out on social media. Give them their support. Matter of fact, they just launched a few weeks ago the Big LG line of products that they have, endorsed by the one, the only, the Big LG himself, Luke Gallows. So if you're in the greater Georgia area, make it a point to stop on by and check them out. They got a lot of great products. And again, you can talk wrestling, you can talk personal care, you name it. The great folks over at Bryant Hill, longtime supporters of the Wrestle Talk podcast. Well, Arsene, we talked about it at the top of the show. We got a lot of great things here. So let's go ahead. Let's hit that randomizer and let's talk the world of pro wrestling right here on episode 519.
Well, real quick, I just wanted to take an opportunity to pull this up just because, our fan sponsor, Susie Haas, it's phenomenal to hear from you, Susie. I just want to say I'm glad that you were happy to see me. And I just wanted to take this opportunity because you picked up my slack in the last episode. Because of my opportunity in Boston, I was not able to star on the show. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for really helping me out when it came to that. And I only hope to make it up for you here tonight. But I just wanted to take that opportunity here, folks, because this woman right here, love her. Like, you, even as a fan sponsor behind the scenes, she does so much for us, both in the FWWC and the Wrestle Talk podcast. So we love you, girl. All right, so let's throw this back into this.
All right, let's go ahead. We got a lot of high spots here. So let's bring up that randomizer. Let's see what it is, my friend. All right, our first question tonight is a part of the high spot segment. Ooh. Let's see what the question is here. We're going to be talking Evolution. Has the WWE mishandled the promotion and marketing regarding Evolution 2? Oh, man. I don't know if I want to take the first comment at this one or if you do, Arsene, because there's a lot you can talk about here. Tell you what, Bat, since you're just coming back, I want to give this to you because I want to see your points and see what you're thinking here when we talk about Evolution, which is coming up this weekend, as a matter of fact.
See, and then I'm kind of glad you mentioned that because that segues into my answer, Luke, and is the fact that I honestly think they have mishandled the promotion of it. I mean, obviously, I know with WWE, we have a lot of pay-per-views, and it's usually every other month or so, or whether it's between NXT or their crossover with TNA. But the fact that this is the second Evolution pay-per-view, like, correct me if I'm wrong, were there any others besides the first one, or is this the second one of all time?
This is the second one at all time.
That should be a big deal. This is an all-women's pay-per-view, right? The second one of all time in WWE history, and it's like, I don't know, the fact that I'm only hearing about it now and the fact that you're telling me it's literally like this week does not help its stance right now. The fact that I'm just kind of like, oh, cool, Evolution is on. I shouldn't have that reaction with especially as much female talent is in WWE right now. Stephanie Vaquer, the Kabuki Warriors. I want to mention this just because Night Owl brought this up. The Kabuki Warriors are back together. Like, that should be a big deal. Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Taya Valkyrie, or excuse me, I'm getting my names mixed up. But Lyra Valkyrie. But Taya would be nice to see in WWE. But Becky Lynch, we have a lot of people to work with here. And the fact that I'm just like, oh, okay, cool, Evolution's on. And the fact that I had to clarify, is this the second one of all time? Like, that, it's such an afterthought to me. So I honestly think they have been mishandling the promotion and the marketing of it, in all honesty.
Well, Arsene, I want to throw this one at you. And again, this is going to be kind of weird, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Do you think that the injury to Liv Morgan basically this pay-per-view?
I definitely think it kneecaps it. I definitely think Liv is a big loss when it comes to it, especially because it seems like any title run with those tag titles seems to just work its way back and forth. Because it was oh goodness, oh my god, I'm showing my ignorance right now when it comes to her. Well, who's her tag team partner again? I always lose my train of thought. Raquel, and she got injured last time, right?
I think so.
Yeah, so it's like the fact that it's bouncing between the two is not doing them any favors. But Liv especially, because I feel like she was doing something for those tag titles. Now it's just kind of like, okay, they're there and Judgment Day has them, but Liv isn't doing anything about it. It's not good. I mean, I don't mean to be blunt with how I'm answering this, but I think it's just because that's a very big loss. And admittedly, I don't know how many other ladies that they have that have the star potential for that right now, especially because as many names listed, you were saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, like I said, when I was looking at it, and I had an opportunity when I got back into town late last night, I had an opportunity to look at what's here. The idea of Charlotte and Alexa going as a tag team, that right there in itself is probably the first positive thing that hopefully the WWE can capitalize on. Now, I'm a level with you. To me, I think every time they take a step forward, they take a step back. Here's why. You have Nikki Bella and the potential of Morgan. If Morgan gets hurt, that's on the shelf. Then you run into all the situation with Bayley and Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch. And I didn't even remember that the match was even going to take place this Sunday until I saw a brief 3-second graphic on Raw last night. Now you have another great tag team, Alexa Bliss and Charlotte. And what happens? Are we going to see something about that on Friday? We have a women's battle royal to determine, I think it's a title shot. And we're not going to get the entrance until tonight on NXT. I really think that this event had all the potential, but this is one I think that the WWE has greatly dropped the ball on. I really do. There is countless potential in there, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, at some point over the weekend, the team that really, and I believe they actually have a chance at the pay-per-view, is a team of the culling of Izzy Dame and Tatum Paxley. They have all the potential to break out on the next level. They really, really do. But again, it's just, I don't think the WWE is giving them as much as they should. And I don't want to say it, but I have a feeling that when you look at the numbers, sadly, I think all the other events that are going to take place this week are going to draw better from a television standpoint, not from an in-person standpoint. But from a television standpoint, I think that Evolution is not going to draw well. And it's because WWE has not done their fair share on the market.
I see what's annoying is that they have a lot of name value with a lot of their women's right now, at least in my opinion. But it also is starting to kind of show some of the holes that they have in terms of, okay, like you mentioned the Battle Royal, right? That's for the tag title shot?
I think it's for a title shot.
A title shot. Okay. But just to put this into perspective, now that Liv is gone, how many women's tag teams do we have? Off the top of your head, and you can't count Alexa and Charlotte. That's thrown together.
You have the Kabuki Warriors. You have the Culling. You have Sol Ruka and Zarya.
Okay.
I had to think about that. You don't have, is Metaphor still a thing in NXT? I don't think they are. Just trying to think here. That's about it.
See? That's 3 tag teams. That's 3. Like that's you have women's tag championships, and there's only 3 tag teams with a name to it. And one of them that was your major star that was holding the belt, gone. She's out. And then you need to slap Alexa and Charlotte together. Like, what does that say about your tag division? And then what does that say about, okay, we have no confidence in these other tag teams to draw, so we need to slap Alexa and Charlotte, even though they could be doing better things at this pay-per-view. To me, honestly, that's not good, and I don't like to know it.
Well, here's my question, and I just throw this out here, and this could be a completely different avenue, and I'm gonna go there. Do you see the idea with this tag team situation? Do you see this being an opportunity to put together Nikki and Brie Bella.
Yes. And I know I'm going to catch so much flack for saying that, only because I know there's a lot of people who have their opinions on them and that they're not the greatest and they're from the Divas era and blah, 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 blah. Look, we know their names. We know that they're a duo, and we have a tag title that we didn't have when they were together in the WWE. I absolutely say pull the trigger on that, especially because we need somebody holding those belts right now. I'm not denying the team that currently has them. I'm not denying the opportunity for the other teams to have them. But if you really want somebody to prop this division up or at least have a tent pole, those two are the ones to do it.
I could see that. Now, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take this. This is where Luke Roberts is going to completely take over high spots here for a few minutes. You talk about the Bellas. Here's my question, and it kind of goes not just with them, but there's been several wrestlers as of late that are Hall of Famers. Should Hall of Famers be allowed to compete once they've been inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Yes, I absolutely stand by that. Only because there have been plenty of Hall of Famers who already did. Sting was in how many, and he was still wrestling to what age? Like, I don't want to say anything to sound.
Well, I'm gonna go a little bit different here, though. He didn't wrestle in the WWE after going into the Hall of Fame. I'm talking the likes of a Bella Twins. I'm talking the likes of a Trish Stratus. I'm talking the likes of a Bill Goldberg, who's going to be competing this weekend against Gunther for the heavyweight championship.
The only reason I say, actually, see, matter of fact, she just beat me to the punch on this one. Susie Haas bringing up a fantastic point. Rey Mysterio, he's still competing, and he's in the Hall of Fame.
That's true too. That's true.
But in the short and long of it, yeah, I personally think Hall of Famers should. Now, do I think that they deserve some kind of grandeur or reverence? Yes and no, because I don't want people to have just a free ride because they're in the Hall of Fame and we all love nostalgia and we want to put the glasses on and forget how red tinted they are. But I do think if they're trying to give back or if they put that ass to work, yes, especially if they're still able to go. Because I know that there's a lot of wrestlers who got inducted pretty early that still have a lot of miles left on them. And admittedly, I don't want them to get hurt. But I also think that they're at that point where they don't need to hurt themselves too much to a match to make it happen. So, yes, I do think Hall of Famers should be allowed to compete.
Arsen, my view. And here's why.
Why's that?
Why ruin your reputation? There have been countless wrestlers who've been inducted into Hall of Fames, and they don't know when to step aside. Now, a lot of people are going to immediately point the finger at yours truly. But here's my question. Since going in the Hall of Fame, have I ever stepped inside the ring? No. To be honest, outside of maybe 2 or 3 times as an official, have I stepped in the ring in the last 5 years? No. Because it's one of the biggest things in pro wrestling, and we've heard it in countless interviews and documentaries. It's tough to take that long look in the mirror and realize that your time in the wrestling industry as the center of attention is done. And, I mean, again, a Rey Mysterio, yeah, I still think he can go. I truly do. But when you have to call on a Nikki and Brie Bella to prop up your women's division, when you had the opportunity back at one of the Crown Jewel events that you had to have the Brothers of Destruction against DX. We all know what happened to Ric Flair. Get well soon, by the way, Nature Boy. Some health issues also in the last few days as well. But it gets to a point where you got to let that chapter, you got to let that part of your life go. It's tough. I mean, you see right here. I can still rep companies that I've worked for. I can still go to events. I can still sit behind a microphone and give new perspectives to things. But at the end of the day, when you are acknowledged as a Hall of Famer, that's when you need to admit that Time is the undisputed, undefeated heavyweight champion of the world. And you got to find a way to come to grips with that. And it's a tough thing to do. But at the end of the day, there are so many other ways that you as a wrestler can provide knowledge and continue paying it forward in the world of professional wrestling after you get that ring or after you get that plaque and say, hey, I'm a member of the Hall of Fame. That's where we're at. Speaking of which, I didn't even think about that, and I'm actually going to go off camera. When you get something like this, you got to know it's time to let the next generation. Oh, wait, now you're going to let me have a zoom in picture? Sweet. But when it comes down to it, you got to understand
that for a reason to show that thing, Skywalker.
Well, honestly, Arsene, when it comes down to it, when you get something like that, you get a ring, you get a championship belt, you get a plaque, you get the chance to have your flowers. That's when you need to say thank you. And to quote something that was said by the legendary Ric Flair that was paraphrased and adjusted and modified into probably one of the most touching moments of the Hall of Fame by the one, the only Jeremy Lightfoot, or Jeremy Lightweight, as our good friends might say. When it comes down to it, for all I've done wrong, I must have done something right. And again, that's what I look at it. Okay, we're done reflecting on Hall of Fames. We're done reflecting on the past. Let's focus on the present here. And we got the Night Owl giving a shout out again. Shout out to the CEO, shout out to the Night Owl, and shout out to the one, the only, the Maestro Jeremy Carp, who actually popped in at the last minute to host the induction ceremony. Big props to the Maestro over at Interstate 70, proud member of the Wrestle Talk family. Let's get another one up here, Arsene. We got to talk some current wrestling.
Let's go.
All right, question number 2. What is the randomizer going to give us to? Ooh. Do you think Mercedes Moné is alienating her WWE fans? I'm not going to be nearly as detailed this time because I know you have a pretty big take on this. To me, at it and say no. To me, that's one thing. But if you want to be considered one of the greatest women's wrestlers of all time, you've got to expand your horizons. And I mean, again, the number of championships she's held, the places she's gone to compete. Again, let's see. She's been the TBS champion. She's been, I believe, with WXW. I believe ICW. I mean, she's been lots of champions in lots of different promotions. And again, that only cements her legacy. Arsene?
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. I was going to say, so you don't think she's alien?
I think.
Here, I'm trying to find like the list of championships right now because this is ridiculous. Okay, this is oh my God. So wait, what is it? She had House of Glory. Okay, this is like just what belts there's.
Come on, Arsene. You gotta list the accolades, my friend.
I just want to get like the official thing. Okay, here we go. She holds the AEW TBS Women's or the TBS Championship. She still has the NJPW Strong Women's Championship, Rev Pro Undisputed British Women's Championship, and then Queen of the Southside title. And then I'm pretty sure with the what was it? She got the belt from the Owen Hart tournament, And then the Rev Pro belt technically has 2 belts with it, if I'm remembering correctly.
And correct me if I'm wrong, isn't she still CMLL Women's Champion?
I'm pretty sure she is. It's just like, yeah, here it is. Mayor Consejo Muñoz de Lucha Libre on June 25th. She defeated Zaosis to win. Yep. So, yeah, what the? Oh, okay, this is ridiculous. That's 7 belts. Like, just, and it's so annoying. I hate it because people are comparing it to that photo of Jushin Thunder Liger and Ultimo Dragon where they're holding all the belts from the J Crown. And it's like, I hate that because to me, that was wrestling excellence. That was the epitome of juniors wrestling. These dudes said, you know what? We don't care heavyweights. We're going to have a tournament. British junior. That was respect and legitimacy. This is a woman who believes her hype this much. And it's like, I respect Mercedes Moné to the nth degree, but I am so sick of this woman with all these titles.
Wow. I wasn't expecting that. I was not. If she's going to countless different countries and picking up recognized hardware, and as you look down here, it's not full of yourself if you can go from country to country and pick up championships and hold on to them for significant periods of time. To me, when you talk about the Ligers,
countries to defend them, Roberts, that's what it is. I don't care that she's going for the championship, but a true champion holds on to the and make sure that they're they're verifying these business that they're.
She does verify them. She has them and she holds them in her hand. She's one of those where when you sit down and you look at it, Mercedes Moné is money. It's one of those where when you have a championship like that, okay, Arsene, your microphone's going in and out because even it knows that you're having all sorts of headaches with things here. The fact is, if she's got a championship belt and you put her name on that championship, it's going to draw attention. It's going to draw eyes to the promotion.
I disagree. I categorically disagree on the grounds that if anything, it's taking eyes away from that company because she's not going back and forth. I promise you she's not. And if you can find the legitimacy, I will believe you. But the fact is, I know she's only showing up in the big ones. She's not there on regular TV in CMLL. She's not in regular events for Rev Pro. She's showing up for the big events, the big ones that she's like, they're big fours. They're WrestleManias. They're events that get as many eyes as possible. But when the time comes to actually do the little thing to help out the little guy and pick up the bit pieces, where's Mercedes Moné? Oh, she's on AEW Dynamite. That's right. That's my issue. And now a bunch of wrestling industries, specifically smaller end ones, don't have a women's championship to worry about. They don't have anything for these women to fight for. And that's not fair to me. That's not cool. Like, it really does feel like she's just Thanos collecting the Infinity Gauntlets of all these women's championships and not actually verifying them or vilifying them in a way that makes it. She's not creating a villain. That's the thing. She's not creating something for people to overcome. She's creating a badass in herself that just steamrolls across everybody and then is probably going to lose these belts in triple threats or fatal four ways. Because when was the last one she lost? When was the last one she competed or defended for that wasn't the TBS title or that she wasn't winning?
Ladies and gentlemen, Gabriel Arsene. Moving right along, we're going to agree to disagree on this one, but that's what makes Wrestle Talk so much fun, is the idea that we can agree to disagree on so many great topics. Why do I get cheeky? We both had valid points and now I'm cheeky.
You absolutely know why. Don't play ignorance. Don't fiend that. You absolutely know.
Well, like I said, we're done with the guys behind the board giving those out. Let's go back to the current. Let's go back to the here and now. Let's go back to the randomizer for another topic here. Hashtag Let's Talk Wrestling. Hashtag WTP. Let's bring another one up here.
Hashtag Luke Roberts is full of horse pucky. I'm sorry.
All right, let's see what question number 3 is. And will Arsene throw another temper? Oh, I told you, Arsene. I told you there'd be something here. We got to bring this question up because this one's got a lot of interesting things here. At MLW Summer of the Beast, MJF made a surprise appearance. Does that increase the recognition of MLW? We both can talk about this. I'm going to tell you right now, this was one of those moments that I just about wanted to jump off my couch. Because the idea of seeing MJF where he really had the opportunity to take this whole situation, I believe Mystico, to another level was awesome. And I'm going to tell you right now, when I was traveling, I had a friend of mine that I've known for many, many moons said, hey, you need to go to MLW's YouTube account. Okay, that's fine. It's great. It's wonderful. And all it was a kind of a reunion, if you will, between MJF and Alex Hammerstone. And I got to tell you right now, it was absolutely wonderful to see those two interact as a part of the dynasty. It really would have been cool if you would have had Richard Holiday just kind of happen to walk across the screen with the dynastic coffee mug, and all that would have been great. But again, it was one of those where I think it really shows you don't know where the competitors of AEW are going to show up. And again, I think it was wonderful. I think did you get to see that footage with him and Hammer after the event?
You bet your ass I did. That was the best part ever. Just seeing dude, real recognizes real. That's all it is. The question is, what does that spell in the future?
Well, the thing is this, though. Don't you agree with me that the only way it would have been better would have been either Richard Holiday walking across the screen with his coffee mug or having an advertisement for Dynastic Coffee as well?
I would buy Dynastic Coffee after that, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, it was just absolutely everything fits so well. And again, Hammerstone is one of those that I am surprised that hasn't made a regular appearance in an AEW, hasn't made a regular appearance in Japan, hasn't made a regular appearance in a AAA, hasn't made a regular appearance in the WWE. The guy has a killer look, and he could pull it off. But again, it's just one of those where we don't make the decisions in the big time companies. So going back to what was said, though, does it increase the recognition? Arsene, I think we would agree with you. A very resounding 2 thumbs up. Yes, it does.
I just have to speak my piece on this, only because you guys know me. I'm the resident MLW guy. All right. I've made myself very clear about the fact that I love it. That's where I picked up this shirt. Like it's been a huge thing for me. And this made me about damn near fall out my chair. And I got it spoiled for me. That was the thing. I made the foolish mistake. I unfortunately was scrolling on my Facebook instead of watching the actual pay-per-view the day of, and somebody screenshotted it because everybody has to share things. So that's on me. I completely and I was still marking out when I saw it because it was amazing. The hype and just the image of all the fans. Nobody was expecting. Let me ask you something, Luke. Was anybody expecting MJF to turn up in MLW? Let's be real here. How many people? I'm saying nobody saw this coming, and it was perfect because this is next level booking I can get behind, especially for Maxwell Jacob Freeman, because the fact that he knew that Mystico would be there, that is where he was, kind of coasting off of when he wasn't working in CMLL and when he wasn't doing the pay-per-views for AEW. The fact that this feud gets to continue, and it gets to continue in a company like MLW, this absolutely increases the recognition they're going to be getting. And I just got to say this while it's still available, guys, you better do yourself a favor and watch Summer of the Beast, because it ain't just a one-moment show. That whole thing, they blew it out of the water. So many fantastic moments.
And again, I'm gonna give a shout out here to kind of piggyback on that. When you're looking at the pay-per-view, you're looking at that event, Riddle and Kenta. Yes, I would agree there. I gotta tell you this: seeing Dijak and Bishop Dyer win the tag championships, seeing 7 foot tall men win tall,
that was insane.
It was really. I mean, it wasn't just like, oh, I might get the rotation. That was absolutely perfect. I'll tell you right now,
Dijak makes that look easy, dude.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those where those two men can dominate that tag team division for as long as they want.
I think that's the scariest part, is wondering who's going to be the one to take the belts off of them now.
I got it. Zilla and King Kong. That's what it's going to take, Kirsten. It's going to take multiple divisions of the military, or it's going to take an entire promotion, something, because nobody, Raw has everything. And though, I did think something, though. Could this be something where a Cesar Duran may kind of put himself into the mix there? That might be what happens too. So a lot of combustible elements there in that tag division.
It's Cesar Duran. I think it's not a question of if, but when. And I'm geeking out thinking about I'm about to watch this pay-per-view all over again, dude. I love this shit. This is
patient, young lion. Patience. You still got an hour of Wrestle Talk. We still got Chad Olson in hour number 2. You gotta have patience.
I need to upload this if we get the chance, because I actually took a screenshot of it and it was the most beautiful thing ever. Because it just to give you guys a picture of what happened and why you need to watch this pay-per-view, everybody started chanting RKO. And so Riddle just took the moment and he hit the Randy Orton pose, and it was great. And then it got to the point where Kenta was setting up and he was going for the GTS. And so he was going like this. And then he just flipped the camera. he completely said, nah, you guys ain't getting this. I made this move, not this man. And if you know what this means, you know what it means. And I'll be the one to rep it. Kenta is the man who owns it. I'm sorry. Love Punk to death, but he ain't got shit on Kenta's GTS. It's called a go to sleep because he puts your ass to sleep.
Exactly. Let's move on to our next high spot question here. Again, remember, if you've got questions, you've got comments, you've got statements, make it a point to put them in those chat windows. Make sure to send us those comments. Also, make sure to send us those stars as well, because without those stars, the Wrestle Talk Podcast doesn't keep bringing you great content like you're having right here as a part of High Spots tonight on the show. Randomizer, let's bring another one up. All right, our next question, courtesy of the Wrestle Talk Podcast Randomizer, is... This, I think, strikes me as a question brought from the Arsene portion of the media department. The question is, would you ever imagine that all of the Judgment Day would hold championship belts at the same time? I'm going to tell you right now, Arsene, my question is, could I see it happening? Yes. But would I say that Dominic is the only one holding singles gold? No, never in a million years.
I kind of want to throw this out there just to clarify, because I might need to fact check this, but not to cut your answer short, Luke, but I have to ask, didn't they already do this?
I don't know, because they didn't have. I think it was one of those where
Money in the Bank isn't technically a title, but it's basically a title. Let's be real.
Yeah, but I mean, again, though, it's one of those when you sit there and look at it. Would you imagine Dominic Mysterio being the singles champion of that particular faction?
He already was at one point, though. Remember, he won the North American title.
Are you counting the NXT North American title?
That absolutely counts. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, again, the North American Championship does hold a fair amount of merit. But when it came down to it, people at that time were still looking at Finn Balor as the voice of the Judgment Day. Now with him having the Intercontinental title, the title that the only step up after that is the WWE Championship. I mean, again, does that really make it a point to say that Dominic is kind of, at least for the time being, kind of the lead horse in the stable of the Judgment Day?
So let me rephrase this question so I can answer it better. So it's not a question of if Dominic Mysterio was the sole singles champion in the Judgment Day. The question is, was I expecting Dominic Mysterio to not only be the sole singles champion, being the Intercontinental Champion, and also before Finn Balor got to hold it? Yes. I was not expecting that in like my wildest dreams. I'll be honest, I thought they were going to implode after he won the belt. Like, I thought this was going to turn into a whole thing. And the fact that it's still going makes me wonder what's the payoff. And I'm still kind of annoyed because it's like we just stuck the tag titles onto Finn again. And it's like, yes, he's a very good wrestler. Yes, he's a very good tag wrestler. But can we stop getting this man to hold the tag rope for one minute? Like, it's cool to see him with the tag championship. Somebody pointed out that like most of the days he's been working, he's been tag champ. But like I'm still waiting. I feel like I finally got heel Finn Balor. Great. He's with the Judgment Day. Great. Gets an opportunity at a singles championship. Doesn't win it. Gets a second opportunity at a singles championship. Doesn't get it. And I'm just sort of waiting for that pop off, and it's not happening. And again, Dom got it before he did, and I was not expecting this in my wildest dreams. I'm like, is it funny? Yes. Does it play into a story that could happen later on? Yes. But I'm sort of waiting, slack-jawed and awed, like, okay, what are we doing with this, guys?
Well, you know something, Arsen? I mean, here's the thing, too, and I'm going to tell you, last night watching Raw and seeing Dominic Mysterio and the cake, that was gold. I'm going to tell you right now, he just has a timing that has become so good in the WWE. I mean, Dominic Mysterio, a lot of people don't like him because of the cheesy mustache or because of the mullet or whatever, but you cannot take away from the fact he is really developing as not only a wrestler, but as a personality.
I agree.
And
100%. He's taking after his father, man. Good old Latino heat. He's getting it, okay?
Well, you got to look at, too, though, and you brought up the idea of Finn Balor being the next one, and again, talking about here, Finn needs its singles gold and to be the one to take it. I don't think so. I think it's one of those where once Dominic Mysterio winds up losing the Intercontinental Championship, and I'm going to tell you right now, my gut feeling, and again, call me wrong if you want, I have a feeling that Dominic Mysterio is going to hold that title until Liv gets back.
Really?
I think so, because then the end result, you're gonna have to take this with a grain of salt. I could very well see Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio, once that championship is gone, leaving the Judgment Day and kind of being that, I don't care if you're a good guy, a bad guy, whatever, I'm in this for me. And kind of have that modern day Bonnie and Clyde, natural born killers aspect of it. And I think it's really I think it has the potential of being a huge situation. I really do. But you know, we have another huge situation we're going to be talking about here in a few minutes, and that's called the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame. And we're going to have Chad Olson on here in a few minutes. Make sure to let your friends and your family know this is a big deal. This is one of those events the Wrestle Talk Podcast has had an opportunity to be at and to be a part of, and to have that chance to do what needs to be done and to give these individuals the opportunity to be here on the program shows our loyalty to professional wrestling, but also shows our loyalty to the history of this great sport of professional wrestling. But we still have a little more than 15 minutes, and we still have a couple more high spots questions. So, Arsene, if you want to go ahead and throw another one up here, we've still got a couple more questions here on the high spots.
All right, I'll take it away. Randomizer, do your thing.
All right, our next question on the high spots, TNA. A lot of people in the media have been saying that TNA has the potential to make it a point to go to 52 weeks a year on a live basis. Now, Arsen, I'm gonna level with you here. I've got a very short comment here because I know for a fact you had one of the longest commentaries that I've ever seen you have with the Night Owl a few hours ago about this. TNA has consistently had a good product. It's not been the best, it's not been the worst, but they've had a consistent good product. Here's my view. Get yourself on mainstream network television. Then visit the idea. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give the floor to you because I know that you had a very good point that you brought up to the Night Owl. And I'm even going to give you something very rare for myself. I'm going to step aside here for a minute. I want you to 100% have the floor here talking about TNA.
I only asked to do my best, but also, what have you done? All right. Got a lot to say here, ladies and gentlemen. Should TNA go back to live 52 weeks a year? And I'd like to point this out only because Susie brought this up. They don't need to go 52 weeks. Their talent needs some family time. And I think that's the most important thing to consider when it comes to this sort of question. Is the talent involved? But you could also look at on both sides, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are like, wanting family time, but there's also a lot of people who just want to work that time too. There are some people who like to put in that grind, put in that work. So I'm not fully sure on what you do, but to answer it outright, yes. I do think TNA should go back to live 52 weeks a year, only because I think they've reached that point. I think Luke was underplaying it personally. I think their product has been fantastic. I think they've been consistent, and that's something that needs to be applauded, especially with something like TNA, where they have seemed to survive every possible thing that could have happened to them and not died out. So I think they're ready. Personally, I don't know that it is something that it's that they need to test the waters first. I think they've been testing the waters, and the thing is, if it ends up blowing up in their face, knowing TNA, they're going to be fine. But that's just me.
Well, Arsen, here's a thought. TNA, back in the days of a Spike TV and other networks that aired the program, you look at things, they drew decent numbers. They've had to rebuild multiple times. Do you think that they've had enough time with these new personas, these new individuals, to make that jump forward? Another thing to look at, too, is you've got some characters, like your Mance Warners, for example, who are known for, pushing the envelope a wee bit too far. And you're going to tell them that they were going to go live with nothing more than the famed 7-second delay? I don't know if that's a good move for Anthem Sports. I really don't.
Maybe I'm just optimistic. I don't know. I don't mean to kind of concede the argument here. I guess it's just because you know what it is? I think that's my problem, Luke. I'm speaking on behalf of me as a TNA fanboy. And the average person watching live television or watching a live show is not an average TNA, or is not a TNA fanboy to the degree that I am.
I can agree with you on that. I mean, again, they do have, when you go back to when they first went from the weekly pay-per-view to the weekly television, we talk about Fox, or you talk about any of the other networks that they were regularly a part of. I mean, again, it gave an opportunity for an AJ Styles, for a Christopher Daniels, a Samoa Joe, an Abyss, a Sanjay Dutt, the Motor City Machine Guns, among others. Lots of great personalities. It's just the idea of, do we have the caliber of a roster to be able to be on regular live weekly television? Because then if you got that, then you're looking at it from a perspective of 3 major products running on a weekly basis. And the question is, are they going to be, by being live, are they going to be able to sustain? I mean, they've got the talent. I won't dispute that. But can they sustain?
You said, do they have the right amount to run that? I was just going to pop off about how I'm like, yes, because they have TNAJ Francis, and he is nothing but money, money, money. So that's exactly what's going to be reflective of them. But you mean in the long term and not just one person. I understand.
Yeah, I guess one of those, only time is going to tell here. Things are going. So we have one more question, I do believe, in the high spot segment here, and then we're going to be joined in just a little under 15 minutes by the one, the only Chad Olson from the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame, and their induction ceremony taking place on the 17th through 19th of July in Waterloo, Iowa. But before we get there, let's go ahead and throw up our last high spots question. Thus far, the randomizer has done well. Carp's away. The randomizer works. All is going well. Let's hit it one last time. All right, our final high spots question of the night. Let's see what. Ooh.
I believe this is actually one from our resident night owl, because I did not phrase this question like this.
Ooh. Arsene, you're taking this first, because I need a minute to compose myself here.
All right.
Go ahead and take it, my friend.
So, Goldberg or Oldberg, is there anything about this latest run worth watching? You got to put me on the spot like this, Skywalker. I don't want to answer this question. This is like, I feel like I'm going to get enemies regardless of answer. I feel like it's a Band-Aid. I got to rip it off. And I say this as somebody who got into Goldberg via VHS tapes my aunt gave me, to see this sort of mythic legend of a guy built up. And then right around the time in 2016, 2017, I might be getting the dates mixed up specifically, but right around the time I really got into wrestling full time, he came back and he had the match with Lesnar, and it was amazing. And I had the best day ever after that. But to put it bluntly, folks, I don't think there's a whole lot that's worth watching. I think the only way that there's going to be something to glean out of this is if Goldberg gets squashed. And it's not going to happen. At least not the way that people think it will. And if there's any silver lining, maybe have Gunther choke him out. That would be the best way for me to get something out of it, because I think they could tell a story potentially, but I don't know how many people want this story told. I feel like when he was teasing him on the sidelines, it worked, but now that we actually get a payoff to this, I'm just kind of like, okay. This man came back. Sorry, as you can tell, I'm a bit flabbergasted at this question. It leaves me a certain way.
Well, I'm going to save you a little bit here. From a promo perspective, has Goldberg delivered? Yes, I think he has. Last night, prime example. As soon as the car pulled up, he got out the car. He had the walk. He had everything ready to go, and he showed Gunther what was up. But I'm going to tell you right now, in most matches with Goldberg, you get 5 minutes, 7 minutes. You're fighting to get 10, as many people said on television in different documentaries.
Yes.
But here's the idea. In the case of Gunther, not only is he near the same size, maybe a little smaller than Goldberg, but he has the knowledge, he has the ability, and those situations where we'll see what happens, as they say the metaphorical phrase, when he gets into the deep end of the pool. when he's got to go 12 or 15 or 20 minutes. We know what Gunther can do in 15, 20, 30-minute matches. Gunther will get on his bike and ride. And unfortunately, Goldberg is not going to keep up. And this is going to be one of those, I truly feel that Goldberg has been all big and bad and macho for far too long, and he's going to get punked out.
Oh, see, the idea of that gets me excited, because there would be nothing better than to hype this up as something amazing and then to just have Gunther crush it in front of us, just demolishing Goldberg and reminding everybody, like, no, this was a dumb idea to book this match, and this is exactly why, because I'm going to kill this old man in front of you by chopping him to death. And I say old man as respectfully as possible, because I know Goldberg could pick his teeth with me. The whole point is that from a wrestling and a fan perspective, I really hope that's what we get out of this. I hope we get something big, because I'll be honest, it'll be a miracle just to make sure that nobody gets hurt. I think about the last time he tried to do the jackhammer and almost dropped Undertaker on his head. And it's just not, I don't want to laugh about that, but it's just, anything avoiding that would be great.
Well, you know something, though, as you sit here and you look at it, I think it's going to be one of those, every time Goldberg tries to get a step in the offensive direction, the end result's going to be Gunther's going to put it in control. I truly have got to say here, it brings an interesting bit of I do not see anything. Goldberg event. There's nothing. I think Gunther's going to get back and he's going to ride. But you know something? We're almost gotten through high spots, and again, thank you for all those great comments. I was sitting here. We've been rock and rolling all day here, Gabe. I think now we're pushing about comment every minute. Awesome. Keep up and keep great questions. We got Olsen talk tonight. It's going to be and bring up our great sponsors, because without our sponsors, Wrestle Talk Podcast doesn't exist for nearly as long as it has. We're 519 episodes in. So, Arsene, if you'd be so kind, go ahead and talk about all of our great sponsors here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast.
Paid for by the following. Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Don't mind if I do, Luke. I apologize. I wanted to make sure I had that all set up here. There we go. So, as always, the Wrestle Talk Podcast would like to thank all of our great sponsors: Retro Zone, Painter's Dream Production, that's head by Big Daddy P. Perry, we love you. The Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, Interstate 70 Sports Media, Little Popeyes Designs, that's where you can get your Wrestle Talk Podcast tumbler. Doomed Outfitters, that's head up by our buddy Ace of the FWWC, and World Domination Wrestling Alliance, and of course, the FWWC, the world's premier fantasy wrestling group.
I see you have all the big pop. I'm not going to keep kicking the ice. How it is. You know something, without a response, viewers of the Wrestle Talk Podcast show does not exist for as long as it has. Over a decade going strong here. And again, want to give one more shout out here. Next week, next Tuesday night, right here, same time, same channel, you have an opportunity to catch the newest episode of WDWA Elevation. It's really been taken off as of late. If you haven't had a chance to check in. One of the greatest professional wrestling promotions out on the East Coast. Check them out here. Elevation, a pro wrestling podcast, which you can catch every other Tuesday night. And again, it's hosted by Gavin and, of course, our good friend, the Hardcore Hoss, being here every other Tuesday night. Now, with things are here, Arsene, I know you've been kind of monitoring things. I believe our guest is backstage. Am I correct?
Yes, he is. And I'm sure he's been waiting very patiently for us to finish talking.
Well, like I said, we're good to go. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now. being around professional wrestling as long as I've been, I remember talking with several of my good friends, among which being Dr. Drew Avenhouse, Herb Simmons, Tom Simon, all friends of the Wrestle Talk podcast, all longtime friends of myself. And one of the things I was always told was there are two places that you needed to go. And I knew of both of them, but I wanted to hear it from them. And it took somebody the likes of the late TNT Kenny G to finally get me to a point where I got off my chair, I got out of my office, got a lot of cool things here, but it got me a chance to get out and see the world of professional wrestling. And I had an opportunity a couple years ago to attend a Cauliflower Alley Club reunion. And it was awesome. Shout out to Brian Blair and all the folks at the CAC. But to me, the one that really hit home, the one that really stood out to me was attending the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame at the Dan Gable Museum in Waterloo, Iowa. This event really showcases what professional wrestling is. When you have the opportunity to go through the exhibits and see the likes of things like a bronze casting of the legendary Harley Race's boot, to seeing the old AWA World Tag Team titles, to seeing a championship belt held by the legendary Thesz. And this was one of those that didn't even have the leather behind it like we're familiar with today. This was just basically small pieces of chain holding the 7 plates together. Seeing the likes of all the different posters and memorabilia and all those things. And to be able to sit and hear the stories from the likes of, and matter of fact, I got one of the pictures here in my office that I had from that event, had an opportunity to sit with the legendary Thunderbolt Patterson and Les Thatcher. 2 men who are known across the world. Opportunity to travel to Waterloo, Iowa with Chris Rodell, with the Maestro Jeremy Karp, with Justin Wades. And the idea of being able to take part in an event like this was truly awesome. And again, it's our honor and our pristine privilege to have once again here on the Wrestle Talk podcast to talk about the 2025 Hall of Fame induction ceremony that's going to be taking place on July 17th through 19th in Waterloo, Iowa. Ladies and gentlemen of the Wrestle Talk podcast, please, once again, welcome to the program, Chad Olson.
What an introduction.
Oh. All right. Well, Chad,
Wanted to play it
we're
out a
going to see
little
if I don't know you
That's
did.
awesome.
Well, Chad, first of all, again, I want to say thank you very much for joining us here on the program. And again, when you talk about professional wrestling, you got to talk about the Tragos Thesz. Just the history, the nostalgia, all the things that happen when you get to go to Waterloo, Iowa. And again, from top to bottom, it's a great event. I got to ask you, first of all, you and I have met on a couple of occasions. And my question is, for those that have taken part of the Wrestle Talk podcast, can you explain to our viewers what drew you into professional wrestling? We hear the story all the time, but what drew you? I mean, you have been so involved, so instrumental with this event and countless wrestling events. What drew you to the world of professional wrestling?
So my first memories of professional wrestling, I grew up in northern Iowa, about 5 minutes from Minnesota. And it was going over to my great grandpa's house after church on Sundays and watching the AWA. And it was probably about 1982 or so. And it would be on Sunday afternoons. And then I don't know if it went off the air for a time. I don't have really big memories on that. But I do remember then Sunday nights, like at 10:30 after the Sunday night news, it debuted on a channel out of Austin, Minnesota. And that was in 84. So Rick Martel and the Road Warriors and the Fabulous Ones were all the people like really, at the top of the AWA then. And I got really enthusiastic about that and had a couple of buddies who were also enthusiastic with that, Troy Peterson and Mike Ingebrigtsen, who, we're in our early 50s now and we're still hanging out, and we still come to Waterloo every year to hang out. And, along the way, Troy got involved with promoting the weekend and his company, Impact Pro Wrestling, one of probably the oldest independent wrestling promotion in Iowa, ran the shows for years and years. And he asked me to help him. At one point I became his ring announcer, and I always tell people it's because I'm the only person he knows who owns a suit, was my qualification to be a ring announcer. But it's been a lot of fun, doing shows all across the Midwest. And, the past 10 or so years, I've been helping Troy with the coordination of the Hall of Fame weekend. And Troy stepped down after last year, and he was just tired. No hard feelings. He's coming this year. He's going to hang out and have a great time. But he just kind of wanted to step back and kind of catch his breath and concentrate on family and some other things. So this year we're bringing in Herb Simmons and SICW to do the show. And I think it's going to be another great weekend of pro wrestling, celebrating the history. We have the show on Saturday night to kind of incorporate what's current, but we pay a lot of respect to all the legends that will be there and those who have passed.
Well, I want to go ahead. You brought up the SICW then. Gabe, if you can go ahead and bring up that graphic here real quick. We're talking about the event that's going to be taking place on Saturday. I believe that he up one of the individuals had an opportunity when you were down here. I know you were down here for the SICW Fan Fest. And one gentleman right there is James Jeffries. And I know that he's got some, I believe he's got some unfinished business with one big nasty Glenn Williams. I got to ask you, coming down here to the Fan Fest and having such a well-known history with Impact Pro, how does it feel to see somebody the likes of James Jeffries and now him and others from Iowa, Minnesota regularly making the travels down here to the St. Louis area?
Well, St. Louis is such a revered place in pro wrestling history. It's very cool to come down there and see some of that history. We've gone to the last year when we came down for Fan Fest. We made a stop by the South Athletic or the South Broadway Athletic Club. Got to see that historic venue. And then I came down with James in February of this year. James came in to do the Saturday night show at East Carondelet. Hope I said that right. And then Sunday he worked the TV tapings. And I had the honor, I just try to stay out of the way. I like going to events where I have nothing to do with it because I just want to see a wrestling show because I'm still a fan, right? And I just, Herb, is it okay if I sit over here out of the way of the camera? Herb goes, no, I want you to sit right next to me. So to sit and listen under Herb Simmons' learning tree, as we say, for the 3 hours or so of those TV tapings was an amazing experience. And it was such an honor for me just to sit there and watch and just kind of talk with Herb, some of the ins and outs of running a wrestling TV show and keeping it on task and everything. Because in IPW, we've done Facebook events, but it was during the pandemic, so we had a very, here's the secret. The crowd were the other wrestlers. But, we don't have experience timing out a TV show because we just don't have that venue. We just run ours on Facebook, whereas Herb is actually putting his on a TV channel down there in addition to having it on YouTube. But yeah, I know, James has come down. Bryce Jordan has come down, the Death Dealer. So some of the guys that I know very well from IPW have made it down to St. Louis, and it's just fun to see them out of our promotion in other places and interacting with those fans and those wrestlers.
Now, just to kind of piggyback off of that, you mentioned Herb Simmons, you mentioned sitting under the learning tree. What would you say was probably the biggest takeaway you got from that whole event, being able to, from Herb, that you were able to learn firsthand?
Yeah, so I'm not going to tell Herb's secret because it's not my secret to tell. But what he told me was, in another, I think it was when they were doing Wrestling at the Chase, you have to keep time so you can fit it all in within, the 1 hour allotment you have for the show and taking it down to 46 minutes or whatever, fit in all your commercials. The promotion would have somebody at the ringside table. And when it was time to go home, because he didn't have referees with earpieces and everything, he would snap a pencil. And he said they would just buy cases of pencils because they'd be, breaking them throughout the whole thing. And like that's not Herb's secret. And I'm not going to tell you what Herb's secret was, but that was very interesting. The other thing was seeing the original ring bell from Wrestling at the Chase they have there that they use at their events. I mean, just think of the history that bell has the matches it started and the matches it's called an end to. That was pretty amazing.
And the people that got hit with that belt now.
Oh, I'm sure Dick the Bruiser Brody, all those guys put somebody's head to that thing.
Well, I gotta tell you right now, Chad, when you talk about that history, again, I feel very fortunate over the course of my time in professional wrestling to have three people. And you talk about Herb Simmons being one, Herb Simmons and the late Ed Smith here in the St. Louis area back when I first got in the wrestling industry. Mm-hmm. But there were two other individuals too. And I know a lot of the things that Herb strong ties, you said Wrestling at the Chase, but also the late Larry Madison. And my question to you is, did you ever have the privilege of getting any interaction with Larry?
Unfortunately, I did not. I never got to meet Mr. Madisick. We honored him a few years ago at the Hall of Fame, but due to his health, he couldn't attend. He sent in a videotape message. But his Wrestling at the Chase book, I probably read that at least once a year, and I've owned it since it came out. It's just so interesting. I have the DVD series that he did. I have the Wrestling Gold podcast series that he did, and I listened to those. So even though I didn't have the privilege of knowing him, I never got to speak to him. He certainly had an influence on what I think of wrestling as I've learned from him.
Well, Chad, I'm going to tell you right now, the opportunity when you talk about St. Louis wrestling, there is so much knowledge that people like Herb Simmons, like Larry Madisick, among others, have brought to the professional wrestling world. Again, if you can even take 100th of what they have, you would be infinitely better. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to my broadcast colleague here because I know he's got a couple questions, and then we're going to talk specifically the 2025 induction ceremony and the class. And I'm going to tell you, I was reading that before we came on the air, and this year's class, I got to say, the 25th I thought was going to be big. This one is just as big, and we're going to talk about that. But Arsene, I'm going to go ahead and throw things over to you here for just a minute with Chad Olson right here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast.
So I guess I just want to start with a softball, so to speak, just because I usually kind of ease my way into these questions. So as you can tell by Luke's background, as you can tell, it's a little harder to see in mine because I got lots of posters from other stuff, but I promise there's some wrestling mixed in there.
Sure.
I was going to ask, do you have a wrestling collection at all? And if so, what's your favorite piece of that collection? And can we see it?
Yeah. So behind me, you can kind of see now. One time somebody asked me if I collect hammers. These are actually mini bats from baseball. And
I can tell by the poster behind you too.
Yeah. And you can see the posters from the College World Series. So a lot of these are College World Series. I started going to that in Omaha in about 2004 with friends from college. And then that evolved into a family trip, taking my dad and my kids. And we haven't gone the last couple of years just because of schedules. But I'm big into baseball. You can also see behind me, I have a Minnesota Twins Lucha Libre mask that they had as a giveaway. But then kind of above me, I have some AWA Remcos hanging up on my wall. And then over here is more of my wrestling stuff. And I apologize. It's kind of a mess. My biggest, let me just step over here and grab probably my favorite piece. But that's like picking your favorite kid. But I might have to show you too.
I was gonna say if I can narrow it down to categories, it might help. So favorite piece and then most expensive. No.
Most expensive is probably some of my AWA Remcos because I paid $400 for the Midnight Rockers set, but they're not on card. Most of my stuff is on card.
I would imagine on card is really expensive.
Yeah, for Rockers on card, I mean, you're probably looking at, well, and they didn't sell them in a tag team pack. By the time that was like in the 4th series or so, they were sold as individuals. But if one of those on card, you're probably looking at like between $3,000 and $4,000.
Right.
So I bought not on card Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty, and then Playboy Buddy Rose and Doug Summers separately, but each tag team was about $400. But one of the cool things I picked up over the years.
Oh, let's get a good shot of this.
This is from the night Bruno Sammartino lost the title to Ivan Koloff, and it is autographed by both of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
What?
And then
that's wrestling history right there, man. That's see that. It's hard to pop off there. I call myself the young lion with the old soul because I live for that kind of memorabilia, man. Like I know, modern wrestling and all that kind of stuff and the internet, but like to see something like that's vintage. That's awesome. Yeah. That's just
the other, and you would get along great with James Jeffries because he's the same way. We tell him he's an old soul because he likes all the 80s, movies. I mean, Patrick Swayze, Roadhouse, and Red Dawn are some of his favorite movies, but he likes all the old wrestling too that he was too young to watch live. But the other favorite autograph I have there, this is from a magazine. It's autographed by both Mil Mascaras and the Sheik.
Wow.
So,
that's awesome.
So, and I mean, I have autographs on this back wall. I mean, one of my favorites is one from Thunderbolt Patterson because, you mentioned him, Luke, and we brought him in 2018, I think. And he's from Waterloo. He hadn't been back home in Waterloo for like 30 years. He basically started wrestling and took off and went across the country, Detroit, California, Texas, end up in the South. And he and I have just become really close friends, and I just checked, today's his birthday. Happy birthday, T-Bolt. And he's just a fantastic guy. So I have a autograph from him that, says my real family, love Thunderbolt. Last year when we were trying to get people out on Sunday after the weekend was over, Delta Airlines had a major computer snafu last July. I don't know if you all remember that, but T-Bolt was on from Cedar Rapids to Atlanta where he lives, direct flight because he, doesn't scoot around the airport super well. And his flight got canceled. And Jerry Briscoe's got canceled. And so I'm trying to rebook people on flights and stuff. And I mean, the only way to get T-Bolt home was on Delta. And he had to stay in Waterloo until Tuesday, which was fine. He has family in the area and the museum. And I don't live in Waterloo. I live about 90 minutes away by Ames, Iowa. And so I get home, I'm checking on T-Bolt. I said, I'll come back up on Tuesday and then take you down to the airport. But we had to fly him out of Des Moines. We couldn't even get him out of Cedar Rapids. Well, then Monday morning, didn't feel great. I tested positive for COVID. It was the first time I ever had COVID. So I'm like, okay, how do I get T-Bolt to Des Moines? That was my concern. So my mom and dad, they live in Ames. They're retired. They're in their early 70s, but very active. So they drive up, pick up T-Bolt in Waterloo, drive him back down to Des Moines. So it's like a 3-hour round trip for them. And I get this picture. And I mean, this was the first time I had COVID. I was sick. I was down for the count. I had the fever, the chills, everything. And I get a picture from the Des Moines airport, my parents with T-Bolt. So I'm like, I got a picture of my mom and dad with Thunderbolt Patterson. I should get that developed and have him sign it for next week. And it's just like, what a crazy thing. So, seeing T-Bolt get inducted to WWE Hall of Fame last year, through Jerry Briscoe and Bruce Pritchard made those connections when Bruce was honored at our event. That was really special. And I stayed up way later than I ever would to watch T-Bolt's induction live. This year, I'm not going to watch it live, But when it was T-Bolt's, like, I made myself stay awake. It was like, man,
especially as how long the last one ran this year.
God, that's what I heard. I may never watch that, I'll be honest, but there's no way I would have stayed awake.
I completely understand.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I see, all I got is an Attitude Era belt, dude. Like, I can't even measure up.
That's cool. Whatever's important to you, that's where you start, man.
I mean, it's true.
Well, our saying, there's one that only wonderful himself, Rock Riddle.
Oh, I have his autograph. Yeah, Rock Riddle. So I met him at Cauliflower Alley in 2015, I think. And they it used to be at the CAC on Sunday night. There was a promotion that ran a show, and all these indies from all over the place would come and be a part of it, which made for a really long show because these promotions, everybody wanted to have their title matches on, which I don't blame them. And but it's like watching 12 main events. It's not like there's really an undercard. And then in addition, they would do a Royal Rumble. And of course, they wouldn't call it that. But it was a Royal Rumble style battle royal. And some had the people who were on the show in prior matches. James Jeffries was in it for a couple of years. He didn't have a singles match or anything on the show, but he was in the row. And it was just, they were kind of like, hey, whoever wants to be in this, be in it. So it made for some like 50 and 60 man battle royals. And so these were long shows. And I think 2015 was the first year I was there. Rock Riddle, came in towards the end and he won the thing. And I'm like, this guy's awesome, and whether it's in Waterloo or CAC or probably anywhere. I mean, I presume Rock Riddle sleeps in a suit because you never would see Rock Riddle in a pair of jeans. I mean, he's always in a suit. And so I introduced myself to him and, just chatted with him a little bit. And then, the next year he's in the final three and it's like him and Sin Bodhi, and I don't remember the other person. I'm like, oh, I wonder. I bet Rock wins it again, because he's a little older. He probably can't bump over the top rope very well. Sin Bodhi picks him up like an atomic drop or a back suplex and just tosses him over the top, so he flat backs on the floor, and it's just this giant thud. And I'm like, oh my god, they killed him. So the next day I'm like, sir, I thought you died last night. He goes, yeah, I worked the refs too. I was fluttering my eyes when they were checking out. I mean, so it's like, what a character. So we told him about the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame, and he came out and started joining us for the fun. Same thing with Rick McCord. We ran into Rick McCord at the CAC one year, and it's like, oh my gosh, we saw him live in Rochester, Minnesota, towards the end of the AWA in the very early 90s. He was up there with DJ Peterson against the Destruction Crew, and it's on one of the ESPN shows. And it's like, oh my gosh, we saw you live. And we just started talking to him. We invited him, and Rick wrestled in the Central States area. So he comes out these guys are just huge supporters, and it just adds to kind of the, it's more like a family reunion than a wrestling fest, because the access you have in those couple blocks, we have a hotel, it's attached to the convention center, and then about a block away is a wrestling museum. So there's a lot of years where I park my car on Tuesday or Wednesday when I get there to prep. I don't move until Sunday because, about a block down, there's some restaurants, a couple bars, if you want to have a drink or something. And we pack more fun. I don't know if it's more. We pack just as much fun in those 2 blocks per square foot as we do when we go to Vegas for the CAC. And I love the CAC. I'm a lifetime member. With it kind of moving to that mid-August time, I just can't make it work with my job. But we support each other. The CAC supports us. We support the CAC, and Brian Blair, president, will be there. Rich Ingling, executive, vice president, he'll be there. We certainly send a contingent every year to the CAC to kind of promote the weekend. So we're not in competition. We're in a good family relationship. But the accessibility you have at our event is unlike any other fan fest you'll go to, including the CAC, because frankly, you're kind of in this hotel. When you go to CAC, there's a lot of competing events with being in Vegas, right? But in Waterloo, you're just kind of hanging out. So you're just hanging out in the bar with Sergeant Slaughter, with Jerry Briscoe, with JBL. Everybody you can imagine is just hanging out in this hotel bar. And
I think I got to go to Waterloo.
You need to come up here. You do need to come up here, Gabriel. It's an amazing time.
I'll be sure to talk to my boss about sending me up there if we have a training or something.
There you go.
I'll work it out.
Well, Chad, you talked about the history in that 2-block area, but also when you start talking about Waterloo, Iowa, you also talk about the history of the NWA as well.
Yep.
Because that's also got a strong connection in Waterloo, Iowa, where I believe was the original NWA president's meeting, I guess you would call it, took place at the President Hotel.
Yep.
There in Waterloo.
And it's still there. It's about 3 blocks from where we stay. It's across the river. It's actually now senior apartments. But a few years ago, we went there and kind of, they let us in and we toured and got to see the meeting room where the NWA was formed. I mean, that's pretty cool. So yeah, there's a lot of history in Waterloo, Iowa, in terms of professional wrestling.
Very true, Chad. Now, just kind of give an idea here, and Gabriel, if you could go ahead and pull up the poster with the not all of, but a good quantity of the wrestlers that are going to be at the event on the 17th through the 19th here. And I mean, again, it also has the opportunity, if he brings up the right slide, we'd be doing good. But when you sit here and you look at it, there you go. We're good. We're good now, RC. Okay. But when we look at this here, again, the first night really is cool because I remember when I went up there, the first night it was like you said, kind of a family mentality with there was a dinner that was held there at the Gable, and having Gable actually speak and hear just the legacy. And Arsene, did you break the technology on us?
No, it's acting up for me. I'm trying to make it so we're all on the side so we can look at this, but I guess I can't have it work.
I mean, you can put me behind
I'm ugly. I was trying to block you. That's why.
But when you look at the event as a whole, it's the idea of where you have that on Thursday, the first night of the event, but then it goes on to, and there Arsene gets it all taken care of. But when you sit there, and I mean, again, just hearing the round tables and seeing, and again, that was one of those where there's a lot of great authors, a lot of great personalities. I know I was able to purchase George Custon's book about the AWA when I was up there in Iowa. The Territories book series was up there. I had an opportunity to meet with the family of the late Gordon Scully there. The auction, again, one of my pieces that there was the All-In poster that was there a couple years ago, winning that as a part of the part of the Tragos Hall of Fame weekend. But one thing I would be remiss, and you brought up the CAC, and I mentioned at the top of the show, I ran into a good friend of mine while I was out of town this past week, professional by the name Bulldog Bob Brown Jr. A lot of people know him, especially at CAC, as Stuart Kemp. And to give you an idea, right here, a couple years ago when I went to CAC, wound up winning second place in the cribbage tournament. And from my understanding, my understanding is this year, I was the one that defeated him 2 straight, and everybody was like shocked. So, but anyway, I heard that. Yeah, I heard that Mr. Kemp is going to be bringing that to the Tragos Thesz this year as well. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, so Stuart's done a cribbage tournament at the CAC, I think the last 2 years maybe, but it's really kind of formalized on the schedule and everything this year. And it'll be on Friday morning about 9 o'clock. We'll have the cribbage tournament. We'll have roundtable discussions talk, and Bo James, who has the Outlaws Independence podcast, is going to be doing a history of Eastern Tennessee wrestling, and he's promised to bring some artifacts for that. And then Al Getz, who you mentioned with his Charting the Territories book series, he's going to do a live Charting the Territories. And he said, can you give me a really big map and a bunch of colored push pins? I said, absolutely, Al. So it'll be very live and interactive. That's going to be cool. And then I am super excited. I mean, I'm excited for all this, right? It's like Christmas. But Christine Londos, the daughter of Jim Londos, she was out here a few years ago when we inducted her father into the Hall of Fame. She's coming back. Steve Johnson, who recently wrote the biography of Jim Londos, which is amazing. And then John Layfield, who wrote the intro to the bio. And they're going to do a talk about Jim Londos. And when you mentioned earlier, like the Lou Thesz belt, Miss Londos sent me a picture of this belt that her dad won in South Africa, and she's going to bring that. And we're going to do some photo ops with that, with the belt and with those three folks, because it's a pretty cool piece of history for an affordable price. I like to raise funds, but I don't like to gouge people. So, and you can be picture with Christine Londos, Steve Johnson, the biographer, and then John Layfield, who wrote the foreword, and this belt. Now, can't touch the belt. It's kind of flimsy. She keeps it in her bank safety deposit box, but we'll have it setting up there so you'll be in the picture with the belt. And I think that is an amazing piece of history, and the fact that people want to come to Waterloo, Iowa and share this with us and with our community, with our family there, it just amazes me.
And again, that's one of the things that's really cool about the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame is the idea of getting to see all these different pieces. I mean, I remember stuff from like New Japan, stuff from the Hennig family. There was one, I believe, there's a big giant poster from back in the day at Shea Stadium. There was some old memorabilia from the old Madison Square Garden. I mean, the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame gives you an opportunity to truly experience what it is to be basically encapsulated into the history of professional wrestling. And again, this is one of those where if you can't make it out to a Vegas and you say, oh, well, I'm in the middle of the country, it's a hall. This is one that you cannot miss. Hands down, cannot miss, because it's a great place. It's like I said, it's a very family atmosphere. And Chad, I want to go ahead here. I'm hoping that our scenes got this done. We went ahead and took a minute here, and hopefully he can pull them all up. We want to take just a couple minutes here and look at some of the inductees that are going this year. So be so kind. Let's go ahead here and see if we can pull some of these up.
Well, let's start with a good one.
Let's see here.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Medusa with the Lou Thesz Award.
Yep. Medusa is amazing. She is so much fun. She's creative. She's so intelligent. She knows how to market herself and her brand so well. She did a training session a couple years ago for our promotion, and it had a bunch of the young guys in there, and was telling, how do you market yourself? How do you make money off yourself? Even when you're this young in the business, what do you do? The steps you take. And I met her a couple years ago at the CAC, and then at our Impact event when she did training, and I'm very excited to see her again. She's a Minnesota Vikings fan like I am, so I approve of that. Over there, I got my Vikings lucha mask. So I mean, she's fantastic. And she is winning the Lou Thesz Award, and Lou's widow, Miss Charlie Thesz, will be there. And she's been a supporter, when Lou was alive. She's been involved since day one. And I mean, wow. Okay, so I got to go back on that question. Maybe one of my favorite things is Lou, he has his book Hooker out now, and you can get that from Scott Teal's Crowbar Press, and Kit Bauman wrote it. It's a nice size book. I have, before it got formally published, you could buy from Lou a spiral bound one, and it's more of a 8.5 by 11 size one. So I have one autographed by Lou Thesz, personalized to me. So
wow,
Hopefully someday I can meet another Chad Olson so I can sell it. But no,
Well, you know,
You
one
never
thing
know. These things happen.
that is true. One thing I got to share a real quick Medusa story. We were at the Valley Club a couple years the year that I wanted to win the tournament. And those that don't know, our executive producer, that I name, he's a very outspoken individual. And needless to say, Medusa's one of the, she is who you are. If you get it, you're gonna get it. And then turned around and gave him a hug, and I was like, I do not want to take the night out of the hospital for making Medusa mad. But again, when it comes down to it, a great individual. And one of the things with the Thesz Award too is just their involvement in the community and all the things that she provides for the professional wrestling industry and outside of the wrestling industry as well. An excellent choice for the award. Now, Arsene, let's go ahead and bring up another one. The next one we're going to talk about is the Jim Melby Award. Now, a lot of people don't know that the Jim Melby Award is about historians. And I know, and Chad, you can give a little more as well. I believe he was involved with the NWA book, talking about it from the territorial days. Can you give us a little more about Tim Hornbaker?
Yeah. So first, the Melby Award does recognize wrestling historians, and it's not just written media. You know, Al Getz got it last year for his Charting the Territory, which, you know, he does have books, but he also does his podcast, which just has state-of-the-art analytics for wrestling. And Jim was a longtime historian. The year he won it, its inaugural year, and then the museum director at the time, Mike Chapman, told him and announced to the crowd that this is our first historian award, and we're naming it after you, Jim. You know, and then Jim passed a couple of years later, so it was really cool that he got recognized. But Tim Hornbaker, he's done, the NWA, the Untold History of the Monopoly That Almost Strangled Pro Wrestling, or it's quite wordy. I mean, that, if you ever needed a pro wrestling textbook, it's that book. I mean, it's not a light read. And yes, there we go. Thank you. So National Wrestling Alliance, it is amazing. And then he came back with 3 books kind of about the territorial days in kind of with a lens on the WWF. And then since then, he's also written an amazing biography on Buddy Rogers, where, I mean, it has annotations. Again, it's like a textbook. It is just the amount of history, and not just about Buddy Rogers, but some of the history in there about televised wrestling and where these studio shows were coming from and in what states and locales is pretty amazing. And then most recently, he's done a biography on Ric Flair. So he's a very deserving recipient. And honestly, the Melby Award is one of my favorite awards because I have a massive wrestling book collection. And to me, this is like the hardest one because there's so many people you can honor with it because there's such great stuff being done these days.
Very true, Chad. I mean, another one that pops into my head when you talk about historians in areas that aren't, one that pops in my head that doesn't get a lot of recognition or as much as he should, and that's Brian Westcott. Another individual who's very, very, very knowledgeable in the Northwest. And again, but to me, you talk about history, that's hard to judge because there's so many great, knowledgeable individuals that can just, I mean, again, I also think of Herb Simmons, not only being from a promoter's perspective, but all the different places he's been and different wrestlers he's been involved with. Again, the Melby Award is very important. And again, Tim Hornbaker, a very deserving candidate. Let's go ahead and bring up the next one, Mr. Arsene. The next one we have here, well, is the Impact Award, the Baron Von Raschke. I'm going to tell you a quick Baron Von Raschke story. Had an opportunity here, and I saw him put the claw on Travis Cook here in St. Louis because he kind of got a little bit animated. The Baron, I mean, hands down, to me, has been always one of my favorites. And Chad, if you'd be so kind to give us a little more about the Impact Award and, again, the Baron himself.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's an honor for me because, you know, that 1984 period when I was talking about me getting into wrestling, Baron was obviously one of those larger-than-life figures in the AWA. And the Baron has been inducted into the Hall of Fame for his wrestling accomplishments, But the Impact Award started about 6 or 7 years ago, and it really focuses on people who have made an impact or helped the weekend, helped the Hall of Fame weekend. And it's not who gave us the most money, who through their work, their support, whether behind the scenes or in front of the camera, so to speak, has made the biggest impact. And so we've honored James Jeffries. We've honored Joyce Postjan. We've honored my good friend Tim Dalton, who's been, there's 4 people, Joyce, Tim, myself, and then Steve Schmidt out of Milwaukee, who have been to every one of these inductions since the very first one in 1999. So we honored Tim with it last year for his longevity. We decided to give it to Baron this year because someone who, hey, Billy J, Impact Pro Wrestling referee emeritus Billy J is there. So Baron has been one of the longest attending professional wrestlers to support the weekend. And so this year I called him and said, Baron, we want to honor you with the Impact Award. And the first thing out of his mouth is, did I make a good one or a bad one? So I said, well, that's under deliberation for a while, sir. But yeah, I mean, he's been known to slap the claw on some unruly wrestlers. There's a local manager around here named Captain Midnight who just drives me crazy. And Baron put the claw on him a couple years ago at his merchandise table. So you can always count on a good time when the Baron's around. And he is around because he does have a little bit of a loud voice.
That is very true. I remember him putting the claw on Captain Midnight. Some also know my Midnight Guthrie as well. Again, definitely if you get a chance to get a picture of it, you want to keep in the memory book. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one here. Arsene, if you would be so kind.
At the risk of showing my old soul a little bit, but wasn't there an old 50s show called Captain Midnight? I'm not sure. I might be mistaken here.
I believe so.
I have no idea. So, Captain, he originally started as an announcer, a very nice guy named Midnight Guthrie. And then somewhere along the line, he just devolved. It just became a pest. He's just a terrible person,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's putting it mildly, but that's again another episode here. Now go ahead and pull it up here. The next one is the Vern Gagne Trainers Award with Ron Hutchinson. Now, a lot of people are very knowledgeable about Ron Hutchinson, primarily because of, in all honesty, the Attitude Era. But Ron Hutchinson, I mean, again, what can you say about this man to really do him justice?
I mean, he's been recognized by both the CAC and now this year our organization for his accomplishments as a trainer. He wrestled in Canada and Northeast when WWF was early in their TV expansion, and they were recording a lot of stuff out of Canada because of the laws for Canadian broadcasting. You saw him competing against the Iron Sheik, and others. And after he, retired from wrestling, he started working at a wrestling school. So he trained people like Adam Copeland, aka Edge, Christian, Trish Stratus. He's had a hand, Sin Bodhi. He's had a hand in so many of that Attitude Era or a little later, their careers. And he's just a wonderful guy. And again, you can sit under the learning tree and hear stories from Ron, and they don't grow old. So we're excited to recognize him and bring him down and honor him. And Adam Copeland is going to be present for the banquet. We were hoping to have him for a little bit longer, but his schedule changed recently, and I don't know what that means. I just I got an email from him, and I said yes, sir. But he'll be at the banquet. He's going to induct his trainer Ron Hutchinson into the Hall of Fame. And Adam has been honored by us with the Luthez Award a few years ago, so we're excited to have him back.
It's kind of cool in the idea of where, like I said, you have Adam Copeland, Edge at the time, the 2013 Thesz Award winner, and now 12 years later, getting to induct your trainer with the same award. Again, that really is a cool idea, a cool thing to be able to do. Arsene, if we can pull up the one for the next one, please. Here. The Gordon Soley Award. I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm just going to level with you. I've been in wrestling for a long time, and a lot of people have kind of put me behind a microphone for various promotions. Gordon Soley has been known as the dean of wrestling announcers. That is his mantra, his claim to fame. But when I was growing up, to me, David Crockett was one of those that, I mean, if he said something was going on, you knew you had to pay attention. You knew something big was going down, especially in the days of the Georgia-based WCW. Not necessarily what we grew to know in the 90s, but give us a little more about David Crockett, Chad, and how this all came to be.
Yeah, so the Gordon Soley Award, the first year we gave it out for, excellence in wrestling broadcasting, whether it's traditional TV, whether it's podcasting. Of course, we wanted to honor Gordon Soley, so we gave him the award posthumously and honored him by naming it after him. So since then, Jim Ross has received it. Like I said, podcasting counts, so we honored Conrad Thompson a couple years ago. Last year, we had Tony Schiavone. So we wanted to get David Crockett in this year, and Jerry Briscoe, who's the president of our selection board, was at a fan fest and talked to David, and he was amenable to coming. And yeah, we're excited to bring him in. He's bringing his wife and a little family contingent there, so we're excited to that. It's really cool when wrestlers bring their families, whether it's a spouse or spouse and a couple of kids, because to me that demonstrates this means something to them. Last year Arn Anderson was honored, and we brought in his son Brock to wrestle on the wrestling show, but Arn's wife came with too. And, I picked him up at the airport, drove him back, and kind of, showed him the sights during the weekend. So, I'm dropping them off at the airport. She gives me a big hug. It's just, it's amazing when you see that. A couple of years ago, Bill DeMott was honored, and his wife, I kind of coordinated things with her. His daughter and son came with, and they reached out and said, "Hey, we want to come back this year." I'm like, "Absolutely. We'll make it happen. We'll take care. We make your hotel reservations for you." And it just so happens that Bill DeMott's wife has some family in Iowa. So they drive up here, make it a family vacation, and they come up and hang out with us for a few days. But yeah, it'll be really exciting to honor David Crockett. I've never met him, so I'm looking forward to meeting him, and maybe hear some cool stories from behind the scenes, because he spent time as a wrestler in his father's promotion before he decided wrestling wasn't for him, and became a broadcaster and a behind the scenes TV producer as well.
And it's one of those too. I mean, again, when you talk about professional wrestling, I mean, a lot of people would always associate with the WWF or the WWF. You have the AWA and you had the NWA, and Crockett was the consistent voice, along with Tony Schiavone, in Jim Crockett Promotions, which morphed into the NWA, WCW, however you want to go. And to have him in Waterloo, Iowa, I got to give you guys the Hall of Fame props for a great 2025 Soley Award winner. Arsene, got a couple more here to talk about.
Just before we move on, I just want to clarify, just because I like that. I want to make sure I'm speaking, guys, in this podcast. Just to clarify, David Crockett, was that the same gentleman who interviewed Jumpin' Jeff Farmer?
I don't think so.
Arsene, I'm surprised you didn't bring up the idea that when Crockett was actually at Ric Flair's last match in Tennessee.
I think it's because I didn't want to bring that up.
Okay. We're just going to let that one go as it is. So, Arsene, let's go ahead and throw another one of them up here. Ooh, Tank Abbott with the Tragos Award. Now, I'm just going to throw this out here. What credentials to the selection committee justify someone receiving the Tragos Award?
Sure. So for those folks who don't know, this is the George Tragos Lou Thesz Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. George Tragos was Lou Thesz's trainer. So when Lou decided to, when this was organized, this Hall of Fame, and Lou decided that he would lend his name to it, he wanted to make sure George Tragos was honored because he was so important to him. And if you read in Lou's book, I mean, George was as real as they came. He was a hooker and a shooter. He was able to disable people. Lou tells a story about George breaking somebody's arm to prove to him wrestling was more legitimate than they thought it was. And so when the George Tragos Award was introduced a few years ago, it was to recognize people who had a high-level MMA mixed martial arts career. So we've honored people like Dan Severn, who was already in the Hall of Fame. We've had Ken Shamrock, Mike Van Arsdale, Ben Askren, who's had some recent health issues. So good thoughts to him. And Randy Couture, Don Fry, who got to meet Don Fry last year. What a fun guy. He was a character. I mean, he was just so much fun. And I'm so excited for Tank Abbott because I am unfortunately old enough. I started watching UFC with UFC 2.
Oh, that was when it was still underground, right? When it was
very. I mean, and my friend Tim Dalton that I talked about earlier had sent me a tape of UFC 1 because I was in college and I didn't have pay-per-view or whatever. So, but then when the next one came around, UFC 2, a few months later, I got, all these buddies on my dorm room floor to chip in $5 so we could buy the pay-per-view and buy pizza and maybe beer. Watch it. I got to see UFC 9 live in Detroit when Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock had their super fight, which they just circled for 30 minutes before they had rounds, before they had scoring. I mean, it wasn't the best fight. And I mean, I've respectfully said that to both of them when I've met them, and they're like, oh yeah, that was terrible. So
at least they acknowledge it then.
Yeah. So I've been a long time UFC fan. So I got to see the rise of Tank Abbott and what a splash he made on that sport when he came in. And, I think when they would name their sports, his was just pit fighting or whatever. But again, he's been the nicest guy to work with. He's excited. His wife and daughter are coming. And I can't wait to meet. I've never met him. I can't wait to meet him. It's just really fun when you can honor people who, some of them do have pro wrestling tie-ins, like Tank, who, compete in WCW, but some are just strictly MMA and they maybe come up through amateur wrestling, which I'm a huge amateur wrestling fan as well. So to me, that's fun because I get to meet people who are their worlds are converging in the Hall of Fame.
Well, Chad, like I said, you talk about that. I remember the fight. I think it was his first fight in the UFC, and he threw one punch, and the guy folded up. I mean, you saw that knee fold backwards on itself. I remember that. You remember the super fight at UFC 9, and Arsene only remembers Tank Abbott and 3 count.
No, well, it's okay. You can watch the old stuff and learn because you'll like it.
How little do you think of me, Scott? I will have you know I have an extensive history of watching Pancrase. Thank you very much.
Nice.
Hey, that is true.
I will look into it.
Now, did you ever get into
Pancrase? Was not bad at all.
I'm sorry, you said
UWFI, the early 90s.
I started looking into that actually, and I love learning about how shoot style became a thing, and it sort of slowly evolved.
Right. Some of my watch Gary Albright stuff there. We honored him a few years ago, and I got to meet his widow, who was amazing and wonderful. And then also Vader's work in there is incredible. So I digress. I apologize.
All right. Well, Arsene, I think we've got a couple more here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. Let's go ahead and bring up the next one here. Well, the Hall of Fame honor, and this goes to Jake Hager. And I'm gonna say right now, Jake Hager has done so much across so many levels. I mean, amateur at the University of Oklahoma, had a great pro career in WWE and I would say in AEW as well. Moved on, I believe it was to Bellator and had a pretty good run there. What what are your thoughts on Mr. Hager joining the Hall of Fame class this year?
I'm really excited to induct him because my introduction to him was in amateur wrestling. You know, you mentioned he was at Oklahoma, and I remember him wrestling because I am an Iowa State wrestling season ticket holder, and I would go to the Big 12 championships and go to the NCAAs. So I remember Jake, you know, wrestling and competing, and I mean, he was really tough. Now, his senior year, he bumped up the same weight class as Cale Sanderson, so we know how that ended up. But I mean, I was so excited when he came to the pro ranks, and obviously that was when Jerry Briscoe was scouting a lot of talent at you know, out of amateur wrestling, out of college football, the same kind of pipeline that brought us Brock Lesnar and Shelton Benjamin. And yeah, Jake, I always liked watching him because being an amateur wrestling fan, I kind of gravitated to the guys who had amateur wrestling credentials who then transitioned to pros. And, you know, it's hard for them to make it, right? Sometimes they don't have their persona to be successful in professional wrestling despite all their amateur athletic skills. And Jerry Briscoe and I have talked about that a lot at like the CAC or at the Hall of Fame in Waterloo, about guys who, man, if they were maybe just a little bit bigger, you know, some of the amateur midweights are like, you know, around that 146, 148. If they were just a little bigger and a little taller, they'd be a great pro wrestler because they'd be such a freaking heel, you know? So I've always followed Jake's career with a lot of interest, and we're really excited to have him come in. And he deserves it, you know, because the Hall of Fame was started to recognize people who had success in amateur wrestling that transferred into professional wrestling. So that's why the first class was Lou Thesz, Vern Gagne, you know, Frank Gotch. And then it is also sometimes look at people with maybe just athletic credentials as well. And so that's why some of our other awards, like the one Medusa gets, you know, she wasn't an amateur wrestler, but she's done great things and used that to serve the community. So that's what some of our other awards are for.
Very true. Arsene, I know you have a pretty good knowledge on Jake Hager as well. You want to?
Thankfully, yes, I do. No, funnily enough, I actually know him as the final Lucha Underground champion. Back when that was still a thing, it was a whole and I mean, I personally liked it. I know there were a lot of people who had their opinions on season 4. I think honestly, the potential for him winning it and never to be season 5 would have been nice to kind of put a punctuation on it. But honestly, I still kept up with him even when he was in WWE. I mean, 2-time world heavyweight champion, Money in the Bank winner. It's not a career to sneeze at. I think a lot of people kind of go over the fact that like, oh, Jake, you know, he's just been in AEW and all he's been worrying about is a bucket hat. But I'm like, dude, he's allowed to. Like, I'm like, when you've been doing wrestling this long, like, I think you're allowed to just wrestle for whatever you want. You know, you're on your own time, not anybody else's. So honestly, I'm glad we have an opportunity to acknowledge this man and his accomplishments, because I think he's a steal. I think he's great.
Well, and not only did he was an All-American wrestler at Oklahoma, but he was also on the football team. So he was one of those. He'd play football up until, you know, the end of the football season. Then he transitioned to wrestling. And I mean, you know, people like Steve Dr. Death Williams did that. I mean, it became less and less of a thing the farther along you got when people just specialized and stuck with one sport. So to be a 2-sport athlete in the late 90s, early 2000s like Jake was, that really means a lot, because it just doesn't happen anymore.
Well, especially because even now we have a program with WWE taking Olympians, like people who were, and then it's like, how many of them have floundered and didn't even make it to the main roster for a match? So many. And it's like Jake was able to do that and play football and become a pro wrestler and become a world champion. Like, you're doing your part, man. Like, I don't mean to sing this guy's praises as hard as I do, but like, hell yeah.
Wow. No, because I agree. I think sometimes he's overlooked because he's been in AEW and maybe not in the main event where maybe you and I think he should be, but he had a great career in WWE.
Very true. Very true. And I mean, again, when you talk about football, you talk about wrestling, you talk about moving into MMA and the successes he had with Bellator as well. I mean, again, is there anything he can't do athletically? He's going to be like we always saw the vignettes of Mr. Perfect being able to throw darts and shoot baskets and go fishing and all that kind of stuff.
Perfect game and bowling.
And Jake Hager can do it. Yeah, exactly. So, Arsene, do we have anything else that we have to go through here? Or I think we've gone through everybody, if I'm not mistaken, but I know you got the list here.
2 more, but I just to clarify to make sure we got these right.
Yeah.
Oh, the Gotcha Award, Ron Simmons, the All-American. I'm going to tell you right now, this man, I had an opportunity to meet him out in Vegas. And again, he is the most down-to-earth guy. But same token, too, if you try to cross him, just like he said in WWE, not going to happen. You will wind up on the short end. Chad, Ron Simmons.
Yep. So the Frank Gotch Award is to recognize people who brought, I mean, we know wrestling is predetermined, but who brought such an aura of toughness. You're like, man, that might have been real. And Ron Simmons exemplifies that. And I mean, college football Hall of Famer, incredible football career at Florida State, and then incredible wrestling career, starting in the championship wrestling Florida territory, working up into Crockett and the NWA and WCW, and then coming to WWE and just totally reinventing himself and his legendary tag team with John Layfield, Mr. Layfield's on our board as well. So he helped kind of make this connection to us. And I'm excited. I haven't met him before, so I'm really excited to meet Ron Simmons. And I would probably, without meeting him, I'd agree with you, Luke. He's probably somebody who's very nice, but you also know could beat you to death. Right?
Very, very true. Like I said, Arsene, I'm going to go ahead and throw it to you, and I got another a comparison I want to throw out there. So
I believe it was Adam Blompier who quoted that he was quiet as a church mouse, but if you crossed him, he would unleash a biblical wrath on you. So I think that's the best way to describe Ron Simmons in a one-word sentence. But
there you go.
I guess just to kind of flex my old soul, you want to talk about. I mean, even in this photo itself, one of the very first African-American world champions. And then that's the thing too. You mentioned it. It's somebody who has a potential of realism. Have you guys seen that match? This man power slammed the bejesus out of Vader. It's like, I want you to imagine how big this man is, a walking cement mixer, and he made it look like he was throwing down a bag of ice. Like, it was incredible.
Well,
this man is Herculean with his strength.
I want to build on it, Gabriel, because if you remember the end of that match, he wins, and this young man rushes down to ringside, and he jumps in the air and he's doing the splits. And he's an African-American young man. And my brother and I, my younger brother, we'd watch that match like, oh my gosh, that kid was so excited. But it's like you said, he was probably the first black world champion, major one. You can argue about Bearcat Riot, but modern, black world champion, Ron Simmons was the first. And this young man is jumping up and he's so excited. So I go to Kyle Flower Alley, I'm doing the Hall of Fame stuff, meet a lot of folks. And then when the WWE Network launched, they did a spotlight on Ron Simmons and they showed that match. And, and I'm watching the match, but I'm also waiting to watch that kid jump in the air because he was so excited. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I know him because I've met him at CAC and he's come to Waterloo. It's like, oh my gosh, I know that. And it's like years, it's just like full circle, this like lost flash forward thing. It's like, in 1990, 92, whenever he won it, it's like, I remember that young man. And then 20 years later, I've met him, so it's just ridiculous.
Wrestling has a funny way of working out, doesn't it?
It is. It is. Yeah.
No, we can probably talk about Ron Simmons comparison.
Yeah.
All right, well, Arsene, this way. In my comparison, the comparison I was going to make, Ron Simmons falls in the same category to me as Haku. One of the nicest guys in the world, but if you cross him, he is going to leave you basically as a puddle.
Yep.
At the risk of swearing in front of you, Chad, I believe the term coined was unfuckwithable. It's the best way to describe it.
I am not offended. You can swear for me. I actually had to stop myself a couple minutes ago because I was starting So, and I didn't know what kind of if you run a family show here or not. So, don't worry.
Not when I don't.
All right. Well, we got one more to bring up here as our scene brought up, and we're going to go ahead and bring that up here right now on the screen.
Yes.
The Jack Briscoe Spotlight Award going to Eric Bischoff. I'm going to tell you right now, this is definitely one of those that I remember when I came up there for the induction with Rock Riddle and others with Bill DeMott and so on. I can say right now, Eric Bischoff going into the Tragos Thesz, this one really intrigues me because he's never at a loss for words, but as much as people kind of sometimes talk trash about him, he has really done a lot for the world of professional wrestling.
Yeah, whether or not you like it. And I'm going to back up. So the Jack Briscoe Spotlight Award, we started that 3 or 4 years ago, maybe. And it's to recognize contributions to pro wrestling, but it's kind of a catch-all in that it doesn't really have a defined theme. So we can use it to, maybe somebody who is a great wrestling manager might get it sometime. You know what I mean? It's just, obviously Jerry wanted to recognize his brother, who was one of the greatest NWA world champions of all time, Jack Briscoe, and who is in the Hall of Fame as well. And so we made this award, and Jerry suggested Eric Bischoff, and it's like, that makes a lot of sense because he has done so much, starting as a TV announcer in the AWA, where I remember him from, and then, going to WCW, becoming a TV producer and an announcer there, and so an on-camera but behind-the-scenes thing, and then becoming the executive producer of WCW, after Bill Watts was there, and the things he did to turn around, the whole industry, right, and start the Monday Night Wars and go head-to-head with Raw and all the things he initiated. And I will say, I've never met him before. And I'm really excited to meet him because Gloria Lovell, who is the kind of co-event coordinator with me, she's been talking to him to, make his arrangements and everything. She's like, he is so nice and he is so agreeable. Anything we've brought up, she's like, sure. So one of the fans pointed out to me that it was I don't remember, such and such anniversary of Hogan turning at Bash in the Beach, and said, man, it'd be cool if Eric Bischoff talked about that. So we reached out and asked him. He's like, oh yeah, I'd love to. So we're going to have one of our roundtable discussions is going to be him talking about Bash at the Beach, kind of what led up to Hogan turning, the behind the scenes machinations. And I'm really looking forward to that. And that's the kind of thing we have. And I think, as always, Jerry Briscoe's very wise. And, you're right. At first, Eric Bischoff going to the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame, you're like, how's that work? But then you think about it and all the impact he's had on the profession, it really makes sense.
Very true, very true. Arsene, you talk about your knowledge in world professional wrestling. What are your thoughts on Eric Bischoff? I know we've had conversations about the day, but I want to throw this to you. I want to get your perspective.
Well, it's funny because, most people always associate Eric with WCW naturally, which I completely understand. And it's, in doing my research, I learned about it and the complete influence he had. But it's funny, when you ask me, what is Eric Bischoff, especially when it comes to the first thing that pops in my head, I think of general manager Eric Bischoff in the Raw era. When it was Triple H, I believe, at the time the Reign of Terror was a thing. So when I think Eric Bischoff, or you say the name Bischoff, I just hear, I'm back, and better than ever. I don't know why that's the immediate thing that comes into my head, but that's how I knew Eric Bischoff for the longest time. And just to kind of throw it back to MLW, loved One Shot. I honestly kind of wish he stuck around longer because having him dip his toes into something like MLW was awesome. Just to know that, he's still doing wrestling, just to the degree that he wants to. And it's funny too, because I think it was Paul Walter Hauser who actually pitched it too. So it was they were literally on Eric's podcast, and he called, was it Court Bauer, I believe? And he was just like, would you want him on the show? I'm literally on it right now. And he's like, sure. And then
no pressure.
I'm just like, that's Eric Bischoff, ladies and gentlemen, making it happen.
Right.
So, this to me seems like a foregone conclusion. I'm glad to know that he's getting an award, and I'm glad to get to meet him in person. I'm sure he's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, from top to bottom, this year's class, the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame, is definitely one of those that if you can be anywhere near the Waterloo, Iowa area, you need to make it a point to be there and take part in this event. And before we go any farther along, Chad, I want to go ahead and Gabe, if you can bring up the graphic one more time. For fans that would still like to purchase tickets for the event or to still be a part of this year's induction ceremony, what can they do to acquire tickets?
Yeah, what I would recommend is you go to our Facebook page, which is George Tragos Lou Thesz Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, or just put in Tragos Thesz, and it'll pull up. And we have a link there to our ticket site. We have a ticket buying option through Ticket Spice, so it's like 80 characters long. I don't know what it is. But on our Facebook page, we have a bit.ly to link out to it. We'll get you there. You can buy an all access pass, which gets you access to pretty much any event for the weekend. Start off with that social on Thursday night. Friday, we have the podcast, the roundtable discussions, the interviews. Thank you, Herb. And Friday night, we'll have the banquet, the Hall of Fame induction banquet. So if you want to get a chance to, see Adam Copeland, that'll be the night he's there inducting Ron. Then on Saturday, we have more of the round tables. The cribbage shirt will be Friday morning. The Legends of Wrestling card and dice game, which I'm also affiliated with. We'll have a game tournament for that on Saturday morning. We will have an exclusive screening of a new documentary called The Ref Didn't See It. This gentleman reached out to us. He had made this documentary. He's like, hey, would you like to, premiere it at your event? He unfortunately can't make it for the weekend, but he's sending in an intro for it. And we're going to show that. It's like a 90-minute documentary where he talks to Bill Alfonso and talks to some up-and-coming refs too, and just what that's like. Then at 3:00 that afternoon, we'll have the Eric Bischoff Batch to the Beach talk. And then starting at 5:30 on Saturday, we'll open the doors for the Fan Fest at the SICW Pro Wrestling Show. We'll ring the bell at 7 and have some fantastic matches with SICW talent, some of our local Midwest, Iowa talent, and folks from some other places. And it's going to be a fantastic show because Work Simmons and his crew, you're only going to get the best. You're going to get high quality, family focused entertainment. We're bringing in, some of these folks for the Fan Fest. The Boogeyman's going to be there. Demolition's going to be there. So people, even if they're not being honored, we bring in some talent as well to just kind of boost the Fan Fest. And a lot of people just want to come hang out with us. So, Cuban Assassin, David Sierra is like, hey, can I come up? Sure. You can come up. So he was there last year, had a good time. He's coming back. Rock Riddle, Rick McCord, legendary referee James Beard, Joe Malenko. They've all started coming some time ago and just keep coming back because it is such a fun atmosphere. We'll have the pro wrestling show, and then afterwards, and this is something Mr. Layfield thought of. He's done it at other fan fests with Ron. We're gonna have an event called Beers with the Boys, starting right after the pro wrestling show, and we're gonna go into one of the conference rooms of the Waterloo Convention Center. There'll be a bar open. It is a cash bar. I can't afford all the beers for all the boys. And Ron Simmons and John Layfield are going to tell stories, and we'll do that for like an hour and a half till they kick us out. We'll probably be close to midnight then. There'll be other wrestlers in attendance. They might get up and share the mic too. It's something we're doing for the first time this year, and we're excited to have that. So your best deal is to buy an all access pass because that covers pretty much everything. The Beers and the Boys, we do have to charge $10 for. But then I agree with you, Trent. If you buy a ticket for the banquet, you're welcome to do that. You can buy a ticket for the pro wrestling show and then do some of these other things as add-ons. If you want to see Eric Bischoff, if you want to hang out at Beers and the Boys and just do stuff on Saturday, we can do that too. But there's links to all that coming out of our Facebook page.
And I'm going to tell you right now, guys, you got it from somebody who's experienced it live, who's experienced the Hall of Fame weekend. If you buy a ticket, not only will you not be disappointed, but you will take home so many memories, so many cool things. Like I said, having the opportunity, that's one of my favorite pictures that I had from CAC. I happened to talk with James Beard and with Mr. Layfield. And I have that framed here in my office of having to be able to be with both of them. And just the names and the people and the faces and all the stuff that goes around the Hall of Fame. It's truly a great experience. And if you can get an opportunity to get up to Waterloo, Iowa, make it a point to check them out, because you will be beyond ecstatic when you leave the Hall of Fame induction weekend. Now, Chad, before we let you go, we have one other little piece of business we'd like to ask you. As a part of the Wrestle Talk podcast, every episode, we have what's called the Game Show Challenge. It's an opportunity for people to test their wrestling knowledge. And the young lion with the old soul has been on a kind of on a hot streak as of late.
Okay.
Basically, what we look at is the idea of we'll give you 3 questions revolving around a particular wrestling topic. The first one to get 2 out of 3 correct would be the winner. Would you be willing to participate with us on this evening?
I'm game.
All right. Well, we've got the commitment. Arsene, are you ready to finally lose for once?
I don't plan on it.
No.
Ooh. All righty, well, let's go ahead and hit the music for the world famous Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's installment of the world-famous Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. Tonight's contest is scheduled for the best 2 out of 3 falls, and will be featuring from the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame, Chad Olson, and the young lion with the old soul, Gabriel Arsene. Gentlemen, as I stated a few moments ago, I will give you 3 pieces of information about a particular famous professional wrestler. Your opportunity is when you think you know who it is, you shout out the answer. First one to win 2 out of 3 falls will win tonight's contest. In honor of tonight's guest, Mr. Olson, you brought up at the beginning of your interview that you talked about Lou Thesz. So tonight's category will be the Lou Thesz Award. All of these individuals will have won the Lou Thesz Award at the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame. Arsene, are you ready?
I think I'm ready.
All righty. Chad, are you ready?
I am, but I'm nervous because, when we were talking about Adam Copeland winning the award, I'm like, oh, that was like 3 years ago. And you're like, in 2013. So.
we shall see here. All righty. Here we go. Our first fall here this evening. This individual, over the course of his career, has been a part of countless promotions and millions of important memories. Most recently, you have seen him behind the announce desk at AEW. Name this Thesz Award winner.
Jim Ross.
Hold on 1 second here. I'm going to go back here and look at the footage and the timestamp. By 0.2 of a second. The first fall goes to Chad Olson. They were both correct. It was Jim Ross. So the first fall goes to Mr. Olson. Gentlemen, are you ready for the second question?
I do have a question.
Yes.
Am I allowed? Do I have to wait for you to ask who it is, or if I know it, can I interrupt?
You can chat it out at
You
any
know
point.
it immediately. You can just say it.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All righty. Our second question. This individual was known for his countless years in the NWA. He also spent time in management with the WWF. Name this 2016 winner of the Lou Thesz Award, known for his management of the Four Horsemen.
J.J. Dillon.
That is correct. It's 2 falls for Chad Olson. And Arsene, how many falls have you won thus far? None. I'll tell you what. Chad, if you're willing to, just so he can save a little bit of face, would you be willing to go ahead and participate in the third fall?
Sure.
All righty, Arsene, are you ready?
I think I need to be.
All righty. Well, here we go with our final question. This individual has won the Thesz Award. He is a former multi-time tag team and one-time WWE champion. He is also an accomplished author. Name him.
Foley.
No.
Ooh, all right.
I'm just gonna start naming one-time champions. I doubt it's. Oh my god, I don't even want to try to answer that. Sergeant Slaughter.
No. Another clue. He has been mentioned in this interview.
We've been how many people now?
Rick Martel. Start naming every person we talked about.
The next in the last two segments.
Ron Simmons. No. I'm just throwing out names here.
I'm like racking my brain. One-time WWE champions.
He defeated Eddie Guerrero.
Oh, JBL.
The third fall. We got to go to the timer here. Gabriel Arsene does pick up the third fall with JBL, but tonight's winner of the Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge is Chad Olson. Arsene, if you can do it with having a little bit of the cry, can you go ahead and put the victory music up there for our winner here? Can you do it for us, please? I wonder if he's going to be able to do it without starting to cry. It's okay, Arsene. We can't find the victory music. Chad won. We know it. That's okay. We're going to do good. So, real quick here before we let you get, for those who want to know more about the Tragos.
It's not this one, is it?
Well, we're waiting on Arsene. It may be the next episode before we get there. Those who want to know more about you or the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame, they go about doing that.
I'm just looking for it. I can't find it.
He hit it. He's a sore loser. No, I'm joking.
No. How convenient. No.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm on Facebook.
Oh, here we go. There we go. That's all for you, Chad.
Oh, thank you.
Just to prove that I'm not a sore loser. I gotta look good in defeat. No, I'm sorry. I cut you off.
You come to Waterloo. You come to Waterloo. I'll buy you a drink. We'll show you around and everything, and we'll have a great time. You are 21 at least, right?
I'm 27. Yes.
Oh, very good, very good. You know,
I'm not that young of a lion. No.
I mean, when you're my age, everybody looks like they're 15. The beard, though, that at least puts you to 19.
So, but Luke was asking. So, for social medias, how do we contact you? You know, where can people find you next? And just following up on SICW and the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. So, if you want to, I mean, I'm one of the people who answers the Facebook messages on the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame, so you can certainly reach out if you have event-specific stuff there. You know, I'm also under my name on Facebook, and you know, post about wrestling, but also my kids and you know my professional stuff. I have a Twitter account, but I don't go on Twitter a lot anymore. But yeah, you know, and the group I'm involved with, Impact Pro Wrestling, they have a Facebook page as well. We're running a show Friday night in Greenfield, Iowa at the Adair County Fair. It starts about 7:00. So you can see James Jeffries and maybe a couple of the other folks will be wrestling on that big show that ICW is putting on. But yeah, I'm really excited for that SICW main event next week where James Jeffries is going to challenge Big Nasty Glenn Williams for the Central States Heavyweight Championship. You know, James won the Bruiser Brody Memorial Battle Royal at FanFest in St. Louis, and that's what enabled him to get this title shot. And I'm really excited. It's going to be a tough match. It'll be a great match. And we do have a Thesz Memorial Battle Royal at the show as well. And, we're going to have a women's tag team match and a few other matches, and it'll be a great time. So come check us out, whether it's at, SICW. Obviously, if you're in the St. Louis area, if you don't know about SICW, you're missing out. Herb, I want to give a shout out to Herb Simmons, because it's not like Herb just got involved this year to run the show. Herb has been a huge supporter of ours for many years, bringing in talent, and just helping, adding value to the weekend, and just attending as a great fan. And so I'm a big fan of Herb Simmons and his family. That it's such a cool family atmosphere when you go to his shows, because everybody's working behind the scenes or at the ticket counter with Herb and his family. So I'm very excited and honored to have somebody with the wrestling promotional pedigree of Herb Simmons to be helping us with the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame this year.
Wrestle Talk Podcast. Oh,
yeah.
No, I was going to say, on behalf of the Wrestle Talk Podcast, Chad, thank you so much for your time, man. I mean, we love to have guests no matter where it's from, because we like to cover, much like your Hall of Fame, we like to cover every aspect of it, whether it's announcers, whether it's wrestlers, whether it's, bookers, whether it's, even referees, or even the dudes in catering. We
Right.
love to be able to give everybody a chance to spotlight things. And we love what you do for this place, man. We really do appreciate it. And welcome to the Wrestle Talk Podcast family, and we hope to have you on the show again. Real quick, I might be able to get him back on here. There we go. All right, we good, Luke? All right, I think his connection's working. I'm not sure. Can you hear us? I'll take that as a yes, as a no, maybe.
Blink one.
All right. All right. But on behalf of the Wrestle Talk Podcast, Chad, thank you so much for your time, and we hope to catch you again.
Yeah, hey, it was an honor, and I'll give you a rematch even in that game show. But no, thank you so much for having me. Let me talk about the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame, because it's definitely a thing I'm very passionate about.
All right. Well, we should catch you on the next show, man. Have a good one.
All right, take care.
Whew.
How did it happen, Darcy? I give you a little bit of brief about the game show challenge, and then I'm gone for 10 minutes. What's the deal?
I don't know how that happened.
Well, all kidding aside, though, Arsene, again, from top to bottom, a great show. Thank you, Chad, for coming on the program tonight. I hope you, for all of the viewers of the Wrestle Talk Podcast, you can make it out to Waterloo, Iowa, on the weekend of the 17th through the 19th. Again, you will not be disappointed. A great weekend of professional wrestling at the Waterloo, Iowa, at the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame. Arsene, we got to get you up here, man. If you can't get a chance to get out to Vegas for the CAC, we got to get you up to Iowa, because you can say you've been to Iowa.
I've got to add him to my list, honestly.
Yeah, I totally get you, man. Again, it's one of those where definitely a great time would be had. Real quick here, before we go ahead and let things go here tonight, again, we want to get a great big thank you to all of our viewers who tune in each and every week. Had a lot of people, Referee Billy J checking in tonight, people like Herb Simmons popping in, Jim Harris from the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame popping in tonight. Had a lot of great pop-ins here tonight. Before we get going too much farther along, let's go ahead and talk about all those great sponsors who make the Wrestle Talk Podcast what it is each and every time we take to the airwaves. We have the people over at Retro Zone, Painter's Dream Productions, home of the one, the only Big Daddy P, the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. Remember, the 2026 ceremony will be taking place on Sunday, July 19th. Interstate 70 Sports Media, home of the maestro Jeremy Karp. Little Popeye Design, some of those great Wrestle Talk Podcast tumblers. Doomed Outfitters, home of a lot of great merchandise that you can pick up. The WDWA, where you can catch Elevation right here next Tuesday. And, of course, the FWWC, the world's premier fantasy wrestling group. Arsene, any final thoughts before we wrap up tonight's program?
I want my run back whenever I get up there, all right? Waterloo, I'm going to get that trivia contest and run it back, all right? I may have only gotten the one, but I didn't get swept. So I got to redeem myself.
I got to give you props on that, my friend. You did a very good job. Even though you lost, you did do a good job. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who's tuned in here tonight as part of the Wrestle Talk Podcast, episode 519. For more information on the Wrestle Talk Podcast, make it a point to check us out on all forms of social media. And again, as a reminder, hashtag Let's Talk Wrestling, hashtag WTP, hashtag Wrestle Talk Podcast. And remember, if you want to know more about the Wrestle Talk Podcast, check us out on social media. For more about the Tragos Thesz Hall of Fame, you can check them out online as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to do it for us here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast this week. Once again, for myself, Luke Skywalker Roberts, and the young lion with the old soul, Gabriel Arsene, thank you very much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you right back here again for the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Take care and have a great evening.
Good night, everybody.